Yeah, 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 yeah.
Don't let's make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game.
What is up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners, and this is another episode of College Football Now, where we bring reporters who are on site on location, either from the League Winners or elsewhere. Some of my good friends hopping on the show, and we talk some college football. Of course, make sure if you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure to do a like. It's completely free to do so. Like that says right there, like and subscribe, completely free to do so. And also, if you are on Facebook, make sure you're liking. This is a live show, so any comments that you guys have, we will get to live. And if you have a comment that comes after the show ends, if you see this after it airs, you can leave a comment and we'll get back to it between 24 and 48 hours of the comment. I always make sure to do so. And if you're watching on Twitter, you can do the same thing. Make sure to like, comment, share, a whole lot of fun stuff. This week, college football playoff, they dropped their rankings again after week 11 entering week 12. And we got a lot of very interesting stuff in this rankings. I mean, to be honest, I'm gonna pull it up right here. As you guys can see, the top 5 is the same as it was. I'm gonna do a zoom in on this, take full control there. The top 5 is exactly the same as it was last week. The most interesting switch is actually Texas Tech moved up to 6, dropping Ole Miss down a spot after beating BYU. BYU goes from, I believe it was 7, they dropped, or 7 or 8, and they dropped down to number 12. They lost a few spots in the rankings. Miami, after beating a lowly Syracuse squad, moves up to 15 and is the top ACC team in the conference, despite, I mean, there's a very low chance that the Hurricanes even end up in the ACC championship game. Sorry, I'm not talking well right now. I apologize. Virginia also, ended up losing, as did Louisville. They both dropped 5 spots. Iowa lost to Oregon 18-16, and they only dropped 1 spot. New to the rankings is USF, who had a fantastic, they blow-torched UTSA coming off of their bye, and they have a big game against Navy. I'll have Mackenzie Neglia and Brandyn Pokrass on shortly. Actually, one of those actually in the green room, but he's not scheduled to come on for a little bit. I'll let him wait a little bit. We'll talk some USF Bulls football. And then actually at 25, the other team that was not ranked last week, who finds themselves in the rankings this week, is Cincinnati. And I do apologize for the advertisement. I'm going to try to hide that advertisement there. So we just see some comments instead of an advertisement. I do apologize. As Cincinnati, and it's funny because Cincinnati actually had a bye week last week. Listen, I really like what Scott Satterfield has done with the Cincinnati football team right now. But the Bearcats, their last game was a very one-sided loss to Utah. And I know that Utah comes in here at 13, 1 spot behind BYU. But at the same time, if you're Cincinnati, and I'm not a huge fan of being given something after a loss like that and a bye to not even prove themselves. They ended up losing 45-14 against Utah. Now, I know Utah is one of the premier talents in college football, but I think there's other teams that potentially could have been more deserving for that 25 spot. It is the last spot in the ranking, so ideally you'd like to see perhaps something of a JMU. Just show some love to the group of 5, group of 6. Group of 5 for now, we'll call it group of 6 for next year. Show some love to the group of 5 teams. Tennessee comes in there at 23, and they were actually at 25. So they moved up a spot as well. It's very interesting to see the dynamics come and go. Obviously, Notre Dame moved up a spot as well with the BYU loss. And I'm still kind of baffled about Notre Dame's placement in there. But I am going to bring in our guest. I'm going to pull this away for 1 second and bring in our there we go. And bring in our first guest. It is, if we get him on there. There it goes. Having some technical difficulties. It is Brandyn Pokrass, our East Coast correspondent for USF, FIU, and Florida Atlantic, FAU. Brandyn, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's been a bit of a hectic day, today was the media availability for FIU, which I'm sure we will touch on a little bit later. But, trying to make sure everything is charged and not going to die on me during this podcast or show, whatever we want to call it. But otherwise, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Thomas?
I love to hear it. Hopefully, if it did die, it would just be an extended period from what happened last week with about 4 or 5 guests who all just vanished. I promise nobody is actually getting murdered during the making of the show / whatever the show. It's just some interesting technical difficulties seem to arise. But I'm doing great. I do want to bring up the rankings here again for anybody who missed it. We do have some. Top 5 of Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Georgia, they all remain the same from last week. Texas Tech moves up to 6. Ole Miss drops to 7. Last week, Oregon was at 9, and I believe this week they moved up a spot as well. So a lot of teams just moving up an inch after that BYU loss to Texas Tech. I wanted to get your thoughts on these rankings. What has stuck out to you? What are your thoughts on USF finally making their appearance on the list? And just give us what Brandon's thinking about this.
So, that's the first place we have to start. USF, this is an impressive achievement for a program that has been trying to reach this level for a while. This has usually been the echelon reserved for, let's run down the list in the American. The UTSA at times, Memphis, Tulane, that's been the group. This is where USF has been trying to make. We talked a lot preseason about how if USF, with the roster they had, took care of business, maybe stole one of those first 3 games, they could be in business for this. They ended up stealing 2 of them. Now, obviously, you have the Memphis loss. If the Memphis loss doesn't happen, we're probably talking about unless USF loses 2 games down the stretch, right, we're probably talking about potentially a at-large bid over some of these teams, but we're not in that spot. However, everything is ahead of the Bulls. This is a program that has a very important game at Navy this week, which, Thomas gets to hop on the bandwagon right at the right time. Love to see it. But then they have 2 more games, and if they get past Navy this week, really shaping up to be a fun conference championship game for the Bulls. And it's very well deserved. Like, USF's resume is probably the best out of the group of 5. I'd say Memphis is probably second best, but Memphis also just dropped at Tulane. Those 2 teams are really good. I think, look, I get it. They didn't beat Louisville. James Madison played Louisville closer than 95% of their opponents this year. I feel like JMU has to be not only in consideration, but once I get to my second point, they're going to have to be firmly in this conversation unless something catastrophic happens where they lose a game they're not supposed to, or they don't win the conference championship game. That's really the only way I don't see JMU being involved in this conversation until the very end. The second thing that I want to highlight, what is going on with the ACC? What is going on with these rankings with the ACC? How is Miami the highest ranked ACC team, and they are what? 6th in the conference? The committee, and look, we have multiple weeks left of rankings for the committee, but I want to pull up a tweet by Ralph Russo, who does a lot of really great work, and I think it kind of sums it up as I go digging for it. It's very possible that Miami gets to 11th or 12th in these rankings, but then the ACC champion and the best group of 5 team displace them. Miami could get bumped out of the college football playoff by the ACC champion, not the other way around. We are just in a very weird place when it comes to Miami. We're in a weird place where Notre Dame is ranked above Miami. I am very excited to see the shenanigans and chaos that come out of the ACC over these last 3 to 4 weeks, because what Miami needs, and I'm not discrediting Miami's ability as a football team. I came on the show and said after 6 weeks that they were my title pick. They're as talented as any team in the country. Miami just loses games they're not supposed to. They shouldn't have lost to Louisville, and they shouldn't have lost to SMU. Miami put themselves in this situation, point blank, period. The part that makes it crazy is they're getting kind of bailed out by the committee here. I'm very like, okay, this is odd. It's basically telling you, in more or less terms, if it's not Miami, we don't really think an ACC team really is going to quote unquote deserve this as much as them. In my eyes, at least. I could be wrong.
No, I mean, that's the impression that I'm getting too, because at this point, I don't know what more. I mean, I know that Tech has a loss, Virginia has a loss, Louisville has a loss. Miami has a pretty bad loss too. I mean, they lost to a team that's now below them in the rankings, in the aforementioned Louisville. Like I said, I know those other teams have losses too, but it gets to a point where what's the criteria for the committee to compare how bad X loss is to Y when these teams are beating each other and you have one team ranked ahead of the other? It just doesn't make much sense. And especially in terms of the ACC, I mean, Miami's just, they faltered. I mean, there's no way to no other way to put it out. They've really dropped it. And I just, I'm baffled. I mean, but the one team I am happy that I do see on there is Bulls, and there's a nice little Byron Brown gif right in the comment section too. So that's just fitting. He's been a phenomenal for them. But JMU, yeah, that's kind of the other one that's the odd team out. Do you think it's just, why do you think they were left out and Cincinnati was put in? And like I said, no discredit to Cincinnati, but JMU is a one-loss team and their only loss is to Louisville.
I also think, and this is a big part of it, number one, let's remind everybody that as it stands right now, Miami would not be playing for the ACC championship, and that in all likelihood, Miami will not be playing for the ACC championship. So Miami essentially has to hope that the Duke scenario that we posed last week comes to pass, and that they get the at-large and the ACC champ just gets completely left out of the college football playoff, which would be so funny in a lot of different ways, but also would probably cause a lot of chain reactions. We're not there yet. I also think a lot of these rankings are kind of a bit of touch and go from the committee, where I think they're kind of just trying to slot teams with some projection, but they know that a lot of things are going to change. Like, remember, these are not the final rankings. We're on the path. USF wasn't ranked last week. Now they are. Yeah. Right? Who knows what the rankings look like next week? Maybe if JMU continues to take care of business, they're on here. Maybe the committee was a bit spooked by the fact that Marshall almost caught them this past weekend. Maybe a team like Tulane, they want to see another week of dominance from them. There's so many different factors, whether it's the group of 6 teams, whether it's the lower tier SEC teams. I see a team in the 20s, Pitt. If Pitt continues the roll, that's not going to stay like that for much longer. They're going to start approaching Miami. And also, last game of the season, Pitt versus Miami. That's going to go a long way in deciding where the Pitt Panthers, located at the bottom of this list here, could vault all the way up. So I want to keep that in mind. Obviously, I have a lot of questions about certain rankings. I'm very interested, I would say, in how they determine the strength of one conference versus the strength of another over the course of the season, how you project that, and different matchups. If they're considering, maybe they're future-proofing themselves, being like, hey, we think this is going to happen, so that's why we're getting ahead of this and putting them here now. There's so many different ways to look at it, right? There's not an exact science. And let's face it, that's the entire reason the college football playoff exists, because it wasn't an exact science with 2, and then it wasn't an exact science with 4, and even at 12, there's constant bickering and discussion and why this team is in over that team, SMU last year, and why all this happens, and it's never going to be perfect. No one is ever going to be fully happy with this. You just have to let the process play out. And by the way, once again, this is not me crediting or discrediting it. It is just a factual statement. You have to let this play out. There's still so much college football left to be played this season, even if it's only 3 weeks.
Yeah, I completely. And Pitt actually has a great chance this week too with the college game day going to Pitt and taking on Notre Dame. That'll be fascinating. Not a huge fan of Narduzzi saying it's not a must-win game. I think every game is a must-win game. I think that's a little crazy to say, but hopefully hopefully those comments rile up his players and something happens. Otherwise, it'll be that'll definitely be a soundbite that comes back to haunt him after that game if they end up losing. One team I did want to talk about that doesn't make the list here, but they ended up defeating Memphis is the aforementioned Tulane Green Wave. Are you surprised that they haven't made an appearance on here?
I don't know. Tulane's a funny one, right? Because what do you value more? It's honestly, it's the Memphis conversation. It's the same thing, but a bit different. Do you value, just like Memphis, beating the top tier team? Tulane, in this case, beating Memphis. Memphis, in that case, beating USF and Arkansas. Or do you look at the stumble where it's like, why did this happen? Tulane getting ran off the field by UTSA and Memphis inexplicably losing the UAB. Right. I think that's where a committee like this looks at it, sees those two teams, and then looks at a USF and is like, okay, where were their losses? They lost to Memphis and they lost to Miami. Well, we have Miami in the top 15 of the rankings, and Memphis was in the college football playoff last week. Okay. Give it to USF. And USF has also boat raced the majority of their other opponents this season, including Boise State in week 1. So I'm not totally surprised that Tulane hasn't made an appearance. I personally would put Tulane on the list because I think they're pretty solid. I just am in a mode where I want to see them play with some consistency down this stretch. Look, at the end of the day, the American Conference, whether you want to give it the credit it deserves or not, is one of the stronger conferences in college football this season. It just is. Look at the teams that are beating each other. Even the worst teams in the conference have had impressive wins and have competed against some impressive teams. No one is really a pushover outside of maybe Charlotte. And Charlotte was a complete teardown operation. That team is full-blown rebuild. So I just want to see, like, for example, if Caden Velkamp plays, how does Tulane handle one of the better air raid offenses in the conference? Because they got gamed up by Memphis, and I wouldn't exactly call Memphis the most prolific downfield passing attack in the conference. They're good. It's not what FAU is, right? So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the tempo of that offense? And also, the numbers may not bear it out, but how do you deal with an FAU passing defense that, outside of some chunk plays, has been really good at shutting things down for over certain parts, right? Like, obviously they've let up big plays. Obviously some of the wheels have fallen off late in games. And I would say as an overall unit, they're average to below average. But they have their moments. This isn't like the worst of the worst defense on a down-by-down basis. How does Tulane handle that? And also, how do you handle momentum? You're coming off of a game against Memphis on the road where you almost blew a 20-plus point lead. Yeah. How is your energy? How is your confidence level? Yes, you're at home. Or is there a slow start? Like, it's those types of questions that I have for them, for Memphis, even a JMU that legitimately cannot afford a single misstep, period. Yeah. How do you approach that? And that goes for USF too. That's kind of where I fall with it, where USF's kind of gotten over those hurdles. We saw how they responded after the Memphis game. I want to see that from your Memphis, your Tulane, your JMU. And I think if they do that, then you might start seeing them at 25. And if USF moves up at a 24, at a 23 potentially.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do want to talk about Tulane a little bit because Pete Nakos of On3 reported actually a couple hours ago that head coach John Summerall is a serious contender for the Auburn opening. I think we've all kind of suspected he was going to get somewhere going with these rumblings.
SEC. Everyone was talking.
Yeah.
This was the talking point all off season, that this was the year for the Summerall SEC job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think this is where you were going with it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. This adds another wrinkle. How do you prepare a team when you are ready to move on?
Yeah.
When the noise for not your team, for the transfer portal, but you is increasing. When the noise around the head coach is rising and increasing. That is a completely different ballgame. Because if you don't have the guys that respond to that well, this is where, as I mentioned, FAU might catch you. Or let's toss out a hypothetical. I love John Summerall. I think Summerall is a fantastic head coach.
Yeah.
What if he doesn't, for whatever reason, have the best game plan for this week? Now what happens, right? The same goes for a USF. The same goes for a James Madison. The same goes for a Memphis. It's a part of, unfortunately, not just this era of college football, but every era of college football. Because the coach movement has always been a part of this. The "I'm never leaving" quotes, and then all of a sudden, in the late of night, the coach packed their bags, got on a private jet, and is at the press conference for their new job without anyone knowing. How many different stories have we heard? And once again, I'm not talking about anyone in particular in this cycle, but that's just the name of the game. The other name of the game, though, is how do you finish this season? How do you avoid those conversations and keep the main thing the main thing? Because, quite frankly, the majority of the roster is not going to give a crap, or whatever word you want to insert there, that you're looking for a new job. You know what they're focused on? Winning games, possibly getting to a conference championship game, getting to the college football playoff. That's the main thing. So I think when you bring up someone like a Summerall, those thoughts start popping into my mind because you only have so much energy. You only have so much time in a day. If you start diverting that away from the game itself, even if it's not an intentional thing,
Right,
you're leaving the door open for bad things to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's interesting because Tulane, all things considering, has probably the easiest remaining schedule of the American teams.
Or North Texas.
North Texas as well. I think Tulane's ahead of them in tiebreakers. I could be mistaken. I'd have to double check that. But they do end the season, home against Florida Atlantic. That's already been considered a sold out game by Tulane itself. Then they face on the road. They go to Temple, and then they host Charlotte, which we mentioned before. Charlotte has been a complete teardown this season, and that was by design. We already kind of knew that was going to happen going into this season. Now, you were actually at the most recent game for Florida Atlantic, watching them kind of beat up on Tulsa a little bit, took advantage of some turnovers that they normally don't have. Their turnover margin is, I think, going into that game, I believe it was the worst in college football, period. That may have changed after that game. Could you just talk about what you saw from that contest against Tulsa last week and what the potential is for a Florida Atlantic upset at Tulane against a sold-out crowd?
So the game was very interesting because I don't think the final score told the full story, because this game was a lot closer than it looked. From an offensive perspective, early on, first 2.5 quarters, Caden Velkamp was on fire. And he played very well up until he unfortunately got knocked out of the game with the shoulder injury, re-aggravating a shoulder injury that today Zach Hitley said he first had against Memphis. This is what you want if you're an FAU fan for the evolution of your offense. Velkamp's hitting all the throws down the field. He's on time. He's seeing things. As Kitley said in his postgame presser, he changed into the plays. They got Easton Messer, his first 2 touchdowns. He's making ridiculous back shoulder throws in the corner of the end zone, throws deep down the field that maybe like 10 quarterbacks in the country can hit. We're talking like your A+ anticipation, touch, accuracy throws. The run game also did a bit more than it has in weeks past. Nothing perfect, but you're seeing the effect that Caden Shields-Dutton is having on this unit. You're seeing that his power, his downhill running style is keeping the offense on schedule. And what happens with this FAU offense when it's on schedule is that they make plays and they find holes. And then all of a sudden, it's 2 run plays or a play after Shields-Dutton rips off a 10-yard run. All of a sudden, there's a wide open Jay-Sean Plato on the sideline, broken tackle later, touchdown. That's how FAU is at its best. A run game is very important to Zach Kitley's scheme, and I think you're seeing Shields-Dutton start to emerge as the guy. Now, Jamari Sands is very good in his role, but I think for what FAU specifically wants to do, Shields-Dutton is probably the best guy for that job. Now, there's a bit of a question mark that I have as I accidentally knock over my phone and caught it before it fell. There's a question mark that I want to get back to because I'm starting with the positives, then we're going to move on to the questions as we look at the Tulane game.
Right.
When you look at the defense, the secondary is probably my favorite part of it, and the run defense from the defensive line. You know, a guy like Deshaun Batiste has been phenomenal for FAU this year. If I were to say that they have a great pass rusher, he's the guy. Josh Roberts also flashed. You know, some of these other guys on the defensive line really flashed that run defense. And, you know, the secondaries are good. The linebackers are good getting sideline to sideline. You saw a guy like Damon Allen from the secondary start to really apply some really good pressure. Was very impressed by him. Saw Therese Reed have a really good game. You saw some of that secondary, including Jaden Sweeney, really start to improve from where they've been at. But then on the opposite side of things, you know, I'm very concerned about their run defense. I'm very concerned that a guy like A.J. Allen, who very talented player, but has kind of found tough sledding this season, completely broke out against FAU. We're talking leading Tulsa in rushing and receiving. Felt like he was either open on every play and getting yards after the catch, or he was just finding lanes and finding open space, and just they weren't able to bring him down. The quarterback run, once again, was a massive problem for FAU. Whether it was bad contain, just man coverage where there's nothing preventing the quarterback from getting outside the pocket, he was able to pick up yard after yard after yard, and it was a big reason why, after getting a huge lead thanks to your offense before the half, FAU was in danger of potentially making this a one-score game, if not for Zach Gibson's heroics in the third quarter, or middle of the fourth quarter with like 9 minutes left. Also, on offense, it's a team that has struggled to kill clock. The offensive line is very good at pass blocking on their best day. The run blocking, and if you asked offensive linemen, they would say this, is still work in progress. They're still trying to get that to a good level. So when you're trying to kill clock and defenses are flying upfield, because of the tempo that FAU plays at, you're opening the door for more offensive opportunities, more possessions. A big ability for the Owls to see a 25 or a 20-point lead go to 10, and then potentially even lower than that. Those two things are very concerning. The pass rush found its footing. I think they can build off that against Tulane. But it's going to be tough, and especially facing a guy like Retzloff, who is very similar to Brendan Lewis, who's very similar to some of these other quarterbacks that they've played. If they can't contain him, that's going to open up the run game. Then they're going to fly downhill trying to stop him. And then the secondary, like in weeks past, might have some of the problems they've had in man-to-man coverage because they're being asked to do so much as a unit on a four-quarter basis, and because of the pace in which FAU plays.
Yeah, it's honestly going to be a very intriguing matchup. Obviously, Zach Kitley in his first year as a head coach. We've seen some interesting changes. I know Brandon Hoke has actually gotten more rub at wide receiver. He's looked pretty good, and it would be that this is a game that I have marked as a potential upset alert game with Tulane. I know it's sold out crowd. I know it's at Tulane, but FAU's offense does present some challenges as long as the defense can kind of get it together. I think that's more of the biggest question mark in this contest than anything. And also, I guess that's a good segue because there's another really good matchup, different conference, and that's actually FIU's game against Liberty. Last week, obviously, FIU ended up beating Middle Tennessee. They had 0 points in the first quarter, ended up winning the game 56-0. Now they face a Liberty Flames team that they ended up beating Delaware pretty badly, but then lost to Missouri State, who's actually having a fairly good year. So Liberty comes into this game 4-5. FIU, it's a mirror game, I guess we'll call it in terms of records, but it's actually a game, if I'm not mistaken, you're heading to this week. So what are you looking for this contest? Do you think FIU has the power to win at home and keep their bowl eligibility chances alive?
Absolutely. I think that very similar to FAU, and obviously with FAU, the last point, if Caden Velkamp isn't playing, kind of just throw the offensive stuff out the window. Yeah. Velkamp, if he plays, I really like how the FAU offense can potentially get after the Tulane defense, especially in the secondary. Now for FIU, I think last week showed that they can really do anything they want on offense. Yes. Because last week was the first time, and I didn't get to watch it live because I was covering a game, but the vertical passing attack finally got going. Joe Pisanski, in relief of Kewan Jenkins, who has been dealing with an injury, really came in and started pushing the ball down the field, which if you watch a lot of FIU games this year, when Jenkins has been in, it's been there in spurts, but that consistency to just rip it down the field and consistently put pressure on the secondary hasn't been there. Pisanski did that. You saw JoJo Stone's verticality on display. You saw Alex Perry show off the jump ball skills. Dallas Payne show off the jump ball skills. And then, because of that, Kajan Owens gets rolling in the fourth. Anthony Carey rips off a long touchdown run. The offense built upon itself. They finally found what I've been discussing on the show. They found that multifaceted attack. They finally made defenses respect the pass game to a full extent, and then the run game got that much better. And the run game found the room it needed to operate. And I think against Liberty, look, Liberty's a tough matchup. This is a team that, maybe they're not as good as the Liberty teams that rumbled throughout Conference USA and threatened for a college football playoff spot in previous seasons.
Right.
But they're still solid. This is still a solid unit, solid coaching staff that I think does a lot of really good things. But I think FIU is equipped to handle them. And I think they're equipped to handle them if that passing attack stays flowing. If they get JoJo Stone and Alex Perry and Kyle McNeil and, some Ross Fournette and some of these other wideouts involved and it's not the wrong word, force the linebackers to play a little bit off and respect that passing game, respect the passing RPOs. Then you're going to see the run game open up, or vice versa. The run game gets rolling and opens up deep shots down the field. They kind of build off on top of each other. And I think if they do that, look, when FIU's defense is right, they can stop anybody. They forced a bunch of turnovers last week. Their defensive line started really heating up. We've talked in depth about the secondary. Brian Blades II got his first interception of the season. We've talked in depth about what that secondary is for this team and how talented it is. And the rest of the defense follows suit. They can slow down if they're executing, if they're communicating this Liberty offense. If FIU's offense falters based on their previous week and the passing attack isn't as flowing and the run game isn't as attacking, then I think they won't come out on top in this one. But if the offense keeps building upon that performance and the deep passing attack and intermediate passing attack is what it was once things got rolling last week, I think FIU wins, and it sets up a very, very fun stretch against Jacksonville State and Sam Houston, where FIU is trying to get back to a bowl game.
Yeah, I think Pisanski being just on the roster in general was important for a number of reasons in case a scenario where Kewan Jenkins either got hurt or things didn't work out. It allows a veteran guy in the room to take over, knows what he has to do in the offense. And what we've seen, I mean, what I saw watching that game, I only got to see a little bit of it, but he was not afraid to sling it. He was very, very quick to sling it. That's, I think, that lack of hesitation, I guess, whether it's reading a defense or just hesitancy to pull the trigger in and of itself, confidence in himself, whatever it may be. I think Pizanski has shown that different element, I guess we'll call it, that FIU's offense can really hit. And it's crazy because they already have an incredible run game. Kajan Owens is fantastic, one of the sleeper running backs in the 2026 NFL class by far. But now they have the ability to throw, which we always kind of knew, and we kind of saw spurts of that with Kewan Jenkins, but we didn't necessarily see it to the extent that we saw it this past weekend. And now they go against a Liberty team that's kind of been hot and cold, a completely different team, I guess I'll say, on the road than they have been at home. Although it'll be interesting to see how that matchup kind of comes together, to be honest. And then, I mean, obviously FIU has a tough slate after that with Jacksonville State the week after, but then they get Sam Houston, who did get a Oregon State victory. So shout out to Sam Houston. I thought they were going to go winless throughout the year. Before we get to the next team and I bring on the guest, are you just surprised that Sam Houston actually won that game this past week? Because I know I was shocked.
Well, I mean, they should have beat UTEP a few weeks ago if you were watching that one. Yeah. But ridiculous play call with 5 seconds left cost them the game because they played off instead of, not letting an easy pass to the sideline burn 2 seconds off and set up a much easier field goal. But, I think, oh boy, I don't think they're the worst in FBS, but I think Oregon State has been pretty bad because it just seems like a program and a team that's just kind of checked out. And there's that was that the same team that lost Tulsa, or was that Oklahoma State?
That was Oklahoma State. Also,
okay, that was Oklahoma State. Yeah, but it's funny. I've always mixed those up, but it's just
same colors too.
Losing to Sam Houston is just tough, and the manner in which they did. Oregon State has had a well documented history this season of special team struggles. Oh my goodness. Watching it live was like watching a train wreck happen in person. You wanted to turn away, but you couldn't avert your eyes. And it really cost them this game because without those special teams blunders, I do think Oregon State wins. Also, Sam Houston probably shouldn't have won anyway because Oregon State had the 4th down conversion touchdown to Anthony Hankerson, and he just flat out dropped it. And he would have walked into the end zone. So, keep that in mind. Yeah,
it's just, I mean, it's so bad luck like that just seems to follow teams that when things get bad, they only tend to get worse. But I guess that's a great segue to start talking about a team where it has the potential to have a lot of great things happen to it. And that is USF. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the show. Before we go a little bit further, I'm going to bring in our next guest. But before I do that, make sure if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're liking, subscribing like this. Yes, right here. Yep. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Yeah, I'm getting better. Fancy stuff now, man. This is a live show. So if you're commenting, we'll get to the comments, whether you're on Facebook or X or Twitter, whatever you want to call that, or YouTube. Make sure you comment, liking, subscribing. It's all free. It helps us out. Now, with that little tidbit out of the way, I can bring in our next guest, our beat reporter for the USF Bulls. It is Mackenzie Neglia. Mackenzie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I love that segue, Thomas. How are you guys?
I've been working on it. I'm doing great. I appreciate it. Mackenzie, you were at the press conference. Big matchup this week against Navy. Can you just talk about the key points that you saw from today?
Yeah, I mean, it's November. You're still playing meaningful football games. They have a few extra days to prepare for this one, but I mean, it presents its own unique challenges, right? You're going back on the road. It's an earlier game. The weather, which it's colder here right now, so they got to experience some of that today and got to practice outside and that and in the wind and what might be similar conditions to what they'll be playing in this weekend. But the last time that they played on the road in the early game was Memphis, and that didn't end so well for them. So it's kind of being able to make sure that those conditions don't affect them in that way. Also, some of these players went up against Blake Horvath and Navy last year. So they've kind of been able to use that to help in their preparedness in a way. We heard from Mac Harris today also. Blake Horvath is similar to Byram in a sense that he's like a dual threat quarterback, and his offense runs the ball a lot. So the defense definitely needs to play their best game possible.
Yeah, the weather is going to be interesting because I'm checking now and it's going to be in the 50s, but there's been a cold front happening. I know specifically where I am, it started snowing yesterday. So that was extremely fun. And it's about 20 something degrees here right now. So it's not getting any better. Even in Maryland, I know it's going to get pretty cold. Thankfully, it is kind of early-ish, but you still kind of get that little bit of frost. Leading into this game, Brandyn, I'm going to go to you. What are you looking for Navy presents it if Blake Horvath ends up playing, because he did miss that Notre Dame contest. If he ends up playing, what are you expecting Navy to do to try to stop the USF offense, and vice versa? What are you expecting USF to do to stop Navy's offense?
You know, it's funny. I think that USF needs to just focus on execution in this game. I don't think they need to be outside themselves. Like, from an offensive perspective, North Texas is a team that had a lot of success against Navy. And North Texas and USF, while they have some differences with their offense, they're very similar. I think if USF keeps that tempo, has a nice balance with Nakai Davenport and Sam Franklin in the run game, and even Alvin Isaac, and hits the throws they need to hit and uses Byram the correct way, I just don't think Navy has the upper echelon talent to really compete with USF on defense. I think that is where USF can really take advantage of this game, maybe strike first and really put Navy on the back foot and make, in a very similar way to the North Texas game, make the opponent play their game. Exert their will on Navy and really make them have to try to pass and try to deal with the USF defense. And this ties into the USF defense against the Navy offense because, ironically, the strength of Navy is also the strength of USF. Because USF has been very, very good at stopping the run this season.
Yes.
USF struggles have come downfield pass, have come through some of the bigger plays in the vertical game. This is not a unit that has been consistently gashed on the ground since, I think, Florida. And the only reason that happened is because Jaden Ball is just a freak of nature and broke about 15 tackles. Right. So this is a scheme and a unit that has a very unique ability to get after quarterbacks and get after offenses, but they also fly downhill and play the run phenomenally. This is one of the best defenses I've seen in terms of secondary playing the run, whether it's your Deshaun Rucker, your Jarvis Lee, your Fred Gaskin, Jonas DeCluna. I could keep going. These guys play the run at a very high level. That's not including Mac Harris and Jalen Schuler flying all around the field and just eliminating big plays before they can happen. I'm really, really confident that USF is going to be able to mitigate what Navy is able to do on the ground and kind of force them into essentially what I said before, playing USF's game. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to execution. If USF executes at a high level on both sides of the football, I think they win this game. I'm not saying it's a blowout. I'm not saying that USF's dropping 60 on the Naval Academy. They're not. I'm not saying they're going to do what Notre Dame did last week. But I really think that if they do the right things, if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, if they take care of their own business, the cards are going to fall into place, and USF's going to be leaving Annapolis with the win.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because I think what potentially could end up happening, considering the speed and pace of USF's offense, is that they're going to end up forcing Navy to play the way that Army plays, and that's really slowing the game down, trying to run the ball a million times, either with Blake Horvath, Eli Heidenreich, whom he may not be available either. I know he's had some injury issues. So it becomes very interesting to take Navy out of it. I know Navy, like the academy schools, they do want to run the triple option, but Navy is a little bit different where they will throw the ball with Blake Horvath as well. They will actually try to put a lot of points on the board instead of just time of possession. But so this is a big matchup, especially on the road at Annapolis. The crowd there is great. I've been fortunate enough to see a game there already. But doing so continues their quest, I guess, for a college football playoff. Mackenzie, I don't know if you ended up seeing it, but USF did find themselves in the rankings this week, and a win against Navy only looks to further that. How difficult do you think this game will be for USF, and how do you like the Bulls' chances of making the playoffs this year?
I think I think this is like the toughest kind of. If you can get over this hump, then you kind of could be smooth sailing for the rest of the season. I think this is like their make or break game, kind of in a sense. But I think their chances are good. I think they have this spot. I think they're really motivated. They're on this momentum. I think that the win against UTSA last week was definitely their statement kind of game after the bye. But I think they definitely have a good shot. Yeah,
and obviously Navy has not really faltered much this year. And then after Navy, they do travel to UAB, who they UAB fired Trent Dilfer earlier in the year, and then they finish at home against Rice. Now Rice is taking on that triple option offense as well under first-year head coach. But all things considered, if you're a Bulls fan, or if you cover the Bulls, or if you're just a player on the Bulls, you're kind of looking at the schedule and like, okay, if we can beat Navy, we can kind of win out, host the American Championship at home. And it kind of leads to a foundation of what we've been talking about for a while now. It's just continued success. And one of that is Byram Brown, who it appears he may actually have some more eligibility. Could you kind of go into that a little bit, Mackenzie?
Yeah, I mean, Byram he's technically a senior, but he's junior eligible. So he has another year. He could potentially petition to have a medical redshirt because of when he got injured last year. It's up in the air. Like he could be with us next season. He could not. He could declare for the draft potentially. So, it's. I think all in all, too, looking at it like full picture wise, that this team could look very different next year altogether. And Byron plays a big part in that. So I'll have to see, what ends up happening with him.
Yeah, it'll be very curious. I know there are some draftniks interested in him now, but it's not nearly as much as it could potentially be if he goes on a historical run these next 3 weeks, ends up getting, American Championship victory as well. And then once you're in the playoffs, I mean, that draft stock could absolutely skyrocket. We've seen some people have some luck before, or at least get them some notoriety. Last question for both of you guys. I mean, I'll start with Brandon. Brandon, how do you project this game going? I know we talked about a little bit of what the outcomes could potentially be. What do you think at the end of the day ends up happening in Annapolis this Saturday?
I think it's going to be tough. Obviously, you're playing an Armed Forces Academy, whether it's Army, whether it's Air Force, whether it's Navy, they're always going to put you through the ringer.
Yeah,
I think USF is very uniquely equipped to handle a team like Navy this season. They've been to Florida. They've gone to Coral Gables to play, or not Coral Gables, Hard Rock Stadium to play Miami. They've gone to Memphis, an environment that I think is extremely underrated in college football, and you've seen what that does to Memphis for their home games. I think they're very well equipped to handle different types of offenses. They've dealt with a little bit of everything this year. I think if they were going to have a letdown, it technically has happened already. I think this is a team that's going to be prepared and ready to roll. And I think Navy is just, unless Navy truly finds a way to control the game to a dizzying extent and really forces USF to play their game, I don't see Navy coming out on top. I see USF winning by 10 points in this one.
I don't hate that. Mackenzie, I'm going to ask you the question I ask you every time you're on this show. How do you think USF ends up coming out with a victory in Week 12?
I think it'll be tough, right? You need to take every factor into consideration, but I think the score will be much closer than what previous games we've seen with them. But it'll be very physical either way. I've gotten the vibe that the Bulls are still very angry about the outcome of the Memphis game. So they're kind of, I think they'll find a way to come back to Tampa with a win after this one.
Yeah, it's very easy to. I mean, if you're USF, you have to be mad at that Memphis loss because you potentially could have gotten an out-large bid without even having to be the American champion, so to speak, if they ended up winning that game as well and kind of cleaned house the rest of the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'm curious. I'm going to be sitting my little fat behind on a chair watching that game, so I'm going to love the outcome either way. I just hope for a great football game. Annapolis is a beautiful place. The stadium's lovely. As other people. But I want to thank you both for coming on, Mackenzie. Before I let you out of here, let everybody know where they can find you on your social media and your work.
Yeah, all my coverage is on my X at Mackenzie Neglia, so it's just my first and last name.
Awesome. Mackenzie, thank you so much, as always, for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time out to be here.
Absolutely. I appreciate you both. Have a good night.
You too. That is Mackenzie Neglia. You can find her on X, formerly Twitter, at Mackenzie, Mackenzie, Neglia, Neglia. You can follow her for all USF Bulls coverage. She's our beat reporter, and she goes to the pressers every week. She's fantastic. Make sure you guys are following her, and also doing some USF Bulls coverage as well as FIU. And FAU is Brandyn Pokrass. Brandyn, let everybody know where they can find you on your social media before I get you out of here.
So, as always, you can find me at BPOC24 on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. It is Twitter. It will always be Twitter. Instagram, BPOC24, and also Blue Sky. You can follow me at Brandyn-Pokrass. Thank you once again for having me. Gonna be some, fun game coverage content from FIU this weekend. Really important game, homecoming game. It's going to be one of the biggest games I think FIU's had in a long time because if they win this game, bowl eligibility becomes very, very real for a team that has struggled in a lot of different ways in the past few years before Willie Simmons got in there. I'm jealous you got to see USF Navy. I think that's going to be a fantastic football game. And hey, you never know what can happen with FAU as well. So keep it locked to all my coverage. Surprised I haven't cut a promo yet on one of these shows. That'll be coming soon. We'll see. Depends what the mood is. But besides that, thank you, Thomas, for having me on, and I will catch you next time.
Awesome. I appreciate you, brother. Take care. That is Brandyn Pokrass of the League Winners. You guys can find him at BPOK24 on X/Twitter and Instagram as well for all of his coverage with the League Winners. I do have my next guest. He is our West Coast correspondent covering the California Golden Bears and my good friend, Cody Henderson. Cody, how you doing, man? Cody, man.
And I got it, yeah. Sorry. I noticed it. I was like, I don't think you can hear me. Oh, there we go.
How are you doing tonight, bro?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. So I don't know if you've seen the college football playoff rankings for this week, but, obviously Louisville ended up losing 5 spots after their loss to Cal. And, I mean, going into that game, I didn't expect Cal to win that game, to be honest. I don't think you really did either. And they ended up pulling out a great victory in overtime. Can you just give us your thoughts about that contest and about the Golden Bears?
I mean, that was a hell of a win. I was, shocked. Very, very gutsy decision there to go for it on 4th and goal, to go for the win instead of, trying to delay it in overtime. It's actually interesting. Brian Harsin was beat on that play, I believe, when he was maybe coaching at Boise. I don't know if it was Boise or somewhere else, but he was beat on that exact same play.
Really?
Yeah, he dialed it up there, and it worked, just like it did against him. It was like over a decade ago, so I forget which team it was. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, so he remembered that, it seems. He's been saving that one for a while. But, man, I mean, what a game from JKS. I mean, to go in that type of environment on the road and just play lights out like that, dude, that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, he had over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jacob DeJesus went off too. It was like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny because all the stuff that we talked about in last week's show about like what they need to improve on and what they've been doing differently, like they really were like, okay, bet. And just really went out and showed out. They had some trick stuff with DeJesus throwing. I think he threw a pass or 2 as well. I mean, we've had some receivers that we haven't really seen too much of this year finally get some touches. Kendrick Raphael had another good game, 1983 with a touchdown. I mean, after what was potentially JKS's worst game, he bounces back with a game like this. What are your thoughts about him this season and going forward with 2 games left?
I feel like you're really starting just to see growth. Playing at Cal is not easy. You're not playing with superstar athletes all around you. These guys are really good football players, but it's not like he's playing for a top college football team in the nation. So I feel like he's probably been put under a lot more of a stressful situation than most, quarterbacks are that are as of his type of caliber.
Yeah.
And he's just pushed through it. I mean, he's been nails. He's answered all the tough questions. You can see that he's really, really mature for his age. And I think it's starting to really show up on game days too. I mean, you can see that he's learning from some of his mistakes. He's starting to throw the ball away a little bit more, not trying to take as many, dumb sacks, I guess you would call them. Dude, I mean, he trusts his arm. I mean, that first touchdown pass he threw, dude, that was – I don't know if there's another – I honestly, Thomas, don't know if there's another quarterback in college football that can make that throw. I really don't.
No, that's why I'm like, it's insane seeing some of the throws this kid is making, man. And just, I know for some people it's like awkward because it's the lefty doing it, but he's just so elite and he's just got so much confidence in his arm. I don't think he cares what's happening down the field. He's like, I'm going to make it fit. Also, I did want to shout out Ezekiel Masses because he's been making some business decisions from the tackling standpoint, but he did have another interception in this game. I mean, Miller Moss, I mean, I'm going to get some slack from this. Please, Miller Moss's mother, don't come after me again. I don't want to deal with that. But Miller Moss, he didn't play great. Again, man, he's really been kind of held up by Isaac Brown, who I 136 for Brown, and then Chris Bell at 6 for 49. But Miller Moss had 203 yards, no touchdowns, and interception. Cal's defense really stifled him. Were you surprised that Louisville's offense passing attack wasn't able to get going?
Yeah, I mean, the Cal defense really stepped up. They stepped up when they really had to. Things were looking maybe a little bit bleak at first. I was like, oh, man, this might be a long one because Louisville goes down and scores pretty easily. But Nope, they tightened down. They played smart. They didn't really pick up any stupid penalties. And it showed. I mean, Miller Moss, he's a pretty good college football quarterback, but, he's not unbeatable and he's not a Heisman candidate by any means. So he's someone that I feel like he's kind of that, he's the engine to that car. And if you can shut the engine down, I mean, all those speedsters and guys that they got that can really hurt your defense, I mean, they're just not really useful as much, So I think Cal was able to play pretty good defense on the road, given the scenario.
Yeah, they ended up getting a handful of sacks too. Now, obviously, they do have a bye week this week, but the week after that's the big game against Stanford. Stanford out of bowl is no longer bowl eligible. They will at best could have 5 wins, and that includes if they pull up an upset at home against Cal. I do want to talk about that. I mean, we'll talk about that next week probably too, but I did want to briefly talk about that with you now. How likely do you think it is that the Stanford play? I mean, are they going to get up for this game, or knowing that they only have one game after this, Frank Reich is likely not going to be the guy for them anymore? Do you think could be some kind of checking out from the Cardinal players?
No, not in this game. Not in this game. I mean, this is the big game. I mean, this is the one that it doesn't matter what your record is. If both of you stink, this is the one you want to win, right? So, especially with Cal winning it these past, I think, 4 years in a row now. Stanford for sure wants to get their hands back on that trophy. No, I expect the best game out of Stanford. They're probably going to have their biggest attendance or home crowd all season. So, and a lot of that's going to be Cal fans, right? But there is going to be a lot of Stanford fans too. This is a game that, they've had circled, right? Usually when your team kind of stinks early on in the year, you go, okay, which one do we really need to get this win on? This is the one they really want the win on. So I expect Stanford's probably best game. They're gonna try everything.
Yeah, I think they're going to try to get up for this game too, because I think their final game, I think it's against Notre Dame. I'd have to double check that, but let me do that real quick. But if it is against Notre Dame, I mean, you got to think that more realistically they'll want to beat their big rival and it is Notre Dame, who is ranked 9th. I mean, I don't think they should be ranked 9th, but that's neither here nor there. Now, going into that matchup, are there just any key players from Stanford that you're looking at that could potentially throw fits for Cal against Cal?
Trying to think here. I mean,
I think they went to Elijah Brown now at quarterback. They did end up losing to UNC. So Elijah Brown's in at quarterback. I know Sam Roush, I might be pronouncing his name wrong, the tight end they have there. He's pretty good too.
Stanford's always got good tight ends, but Elijah Brown, I mean, he does got, really good athleticism. So he does, potentially pose some threats for the defense. This to me though is really a game that Cal should handle them. In my opinion, I mean, they've just got way more explosiveness, way more playmakers, but Stanford's going to be tough. They're always going to be tough. It's always feels like it's a one-score game.
Yeah.
But Elijah Brown is good.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that. And they ended up losing to UNC last week, and UNC's actually low-key could potentially find themselves in a bowl game if they win one of 3 games against Wake Forest, Duke, and NC State. But Cody, before I get you out of here, man, could you let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media and everything?
Yeah, of course, man. You guys can follow all my League Winners content on X, all lowercase at Cody, CODYTLW. Cal's on the road. Well, I won't be to a Cal game until the last game of the year. So, man, it goes by quick, doesn't it?
The season's insanely quick.
Yeah, it goes by quick. So that'll be a good game, though, Cal versus SMU when I go. But, Cal's on the bye this week, and then they've got – it's a big game. I think – what is that, the 22nd or 23rd?
22nd for the Stanford game, yep.
22nd, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure, Tommy. Thank you for always having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Cody. You take care, brother.
Yep, you too, man.
That is Cody Henderson of the League Winners. You guys can find him on X/Twitter at CODYTLW. You can also find his work on Instagram as well. Covering the California Golden Bears. Do apologize. Apparently, I can't talk or anything at the moment. But hey, if you're watching now, make sure you hit that like button. If you're watching on YouTube, I mean, just hit it. It's right. It's pointing right here now. Like, subscribe. Subscribing always helps the channel as well. Liking is completely free to do. This is a live show as well. So if you do have any comments, feel free to comment, and we'll get to it live on the show. If you end up commenting after the show has ended, give us 48 hours, and I will get back to every single comment. If you're on Facebook, please make sure to like, comment as well. Same thing happens. Share to your friends. If you're on X/Twitter, please make sure you are liking and commenting and sharing. I mean, it goes a long way. It doesn't just help me, but it helps the guests who end up coming on to the show, and it means a lot to them as well. Now, if you're just joining us, we did talk college football playoffs. We did start the show like normal with our group of 5 discussion, talking Tulane football, some Memphis college football playoff rankings with the group of 5, some James Madison football as well. We also talked some FAU, FIU, and of course some USF Bulls football. A little bit of Delaware football too for anybody interested in that. Delaware actually somehow, some way, pulled out a win against Louisiana Tech this past week, 25-24 at home. They continue their, I think it's a 5-game win streak now on homecoming games for Delaware. They have done fantastic on a game-winning field goal as time expired. Nick Minicucci, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 304 yards passing. He's been a staple for them. He ended up leading the team in rushing with 55 yards too, and that is. I'm going to go on a little slight rant because I think Joe Silver and Byron Ellison Jr. have not really been performing great for the Blue Hens. The lack of a rushing attack has made some of these games much closer than they should be. Let's just be honest. I mean, Joe Silver this past game went 10 for 21. Byron Ellison 4 for 16. So him not as bad. Ja'Carry Kelly 1 of 3. Nick Minicucci had 9 carries, 55 yards. You need more out of your running backs. I don't know how many times I can say that before my voice gets hoarse. Sean Wilson had 5 for 107 receiving. Kyrie Duplessis continues his stellar breakout campaign, 6 of 78 for a touchdown. Elijah Sessoms, pardon me. Went 2 for 17, and he had a touchdown as well. Haven't seen as much Jake Thaw. Unfortunately, Jake Thaw's had some issues. Nate Evans had an interception in that game. Gavin Moole had a sack. Gavin Moole looked fantastic for the Blue Hens. Meanwhile, Nate Reed, who I did mention, had the aforementioned game-winning field goal. He went 4-4. He was actually the player of the week this past week for CUSA. For special teams. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, but he has looked fantastic as well. You love to see it happen. And Delaware has just been a team under head coach Ryan Carty where everybody thought, listen, this is their first year jumping from the FCS to the FBS. Conference USA, it's not the toughest group of 5, but it's definitely not one of the it's not the weakest. They do have some good teams there. FIU, we've talked about them. They've been up and down on their first year head coach, Willie Simmons, but we're going to see some of that stuff from first year head coaches and as they adjust to their teams, but they do have some decent teams there. Obviously with the Jacksonville States of the world, Louisiana Tech is good, who they actually ended up defeating. Now Delaware has a very interesting schedule because this week they faced Sam Houston. They actually traveled to Sam Houston after Sam Houston comes off of that crazy victory against Oregon State this past week. They're no longer winless. So whether or not they have something to play for remains to be seen. This is just an insane stat of both of the quarterbacks for Sam Houston, Landon Locke and maybe Matt Tower. We'll say Matt Tower. They combined 9 of 24 for 85 yards, a touchdown and an interception. So that has just been – it has not been great for Sam Houston. Delaware should probably win that one. And if Delaware does manage to win that contest, they will have 6 wins. Unfortunately, technically, they're not bowl eligible. Now, if they run out of space, Delaware could find themselves in a bowl game. But that's if they don't have enough 6-win teams. Now, Delaware's remaining schedule this week, they do face Houston, as I talked about. Next week, they faced Wake Forest, who Wake Forest has quietly been a very good, surprising team. They just defeated Virginia 16-9 a couple weeks ago. They defeated Wake Forest 13-12. Now, they did lose handedly to Florida State in between those two games, 42-7. But they have played well. They lost by a point to Georgia Tech in overtime. They defeated Virginia Tech. Okay. NC State. And it's kind of actually hilarious because Wake Forest started the season with a 10-9 victory over Kennesaw State. So I don't think anybody expected the Demon Deacons to have the kind of season that they're having this year. And they actually face UNC this week, which UNC has kind of been surging a little bit under head coach Bill Belichick. But then they do face the Delaware Blue Hens, and after Delaware faces Wake Forest, they host UTEP at home. That should probably be another victory for Delaware. So all things considering, this Delaware team could go 7-5 in their first year in the FBS under head coach Ryan Carty, which that would be extremely impressive to say the least. I would be very, if you're a Blue Hens fan, seeing what Coach Ryan Carty has done with the offense and just with that program, shout out to Manny Rojas on the defensive side of things as well. They've just done really impressive things. It's really a shame that when you jump from the SCS to the FBS, you're not conference championship eligible or really bowl eligible. Now, I talked about that little weird thing where if they don't have enough bowl eligible teams, then Delaware can get an at-large bowl. But seeing them potentially hit 7-5 and finishing the year or at worst 6-6, you got to be happy if you're a Blue Hens fan. And I know I would be. I've watched them quite a few times this season. They've been very impressive. If only they could get a rushing attack going, they'd probably look a hell of a lot better. But I do have my next guest actually in the green room right now. We're going to talk probably some Syracuse football. I actually want to talk some college football playoff as well. Is my good friend Dan Totora. Dan, how are you doing today, my friend? Oh, I cannot hear you, sir. Oh, hold on. I can't hear you yet. Yep, no audio. All right, so still no audio. Let's see. Yeah, he'll come back and hey, man, this wouldn't be college football now without a little bit of technical difficulties, I guess I'll call it. But I will be talking Syracuse football and the college football playoff rankings with Dan in a matter of moments. I can only imagine he's going to be here relatively shortly. So that'll be fun. I know I got this little hair going that's bugging me, so I apologize for that. And he's actually back now. We'll see if the technical difficulties have ended. It's always something. Dan, are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Yes, we're good. I love it. Okay. The show was running too smoothly. Usually I lag out or I have an audio issue or somebody else does. I'm just happy it's not me this week. Not yet.
What the thing is for some reason, and you know this, like things won't work something will work for like 7 months straight and then it stops working. And so I was having an issue with Facebook tonight, not on my phone, but on my laptop. So like if I go to Facebook, it doesn't work. But if I go to my like actual link for my business page, it does work. So then I reset a bunch of stuff, cleared my cache, got rid of all the cookies to make sure that there was nothing like corrupted or messed up. And then like it just changed all my settings. So now I have to go through and fix everything, but it's fine. I mean, it's not listen, when everything goes well, there's always something like, and I've done this before. I leave my studio. Everything's fine for 9 months. I come back in the next day. I turn it on. My computer goes, I changed 3 things. Good luck finding it on your scavenger hunt. And that's just how it is. And anyone that's watching or listening, you know this. I mean, you could have a basic life, just go to 3 websites, use your computer to check your mail, and something will change that, and you didn't touch anything. And then you got people going, well, did you do this? Did you do that? And it's like, no, I literally turn it on. I do the same thing every day. Yeah. So let's talk about college football. I'm done talking about Facebook and all their hateful things that they do.
Yeah, for me, it's this mouse here has a tendency of unplugging itself despite it's continuously plugged into the jack. So I have to manually do it, and that can be very annoying sometimes to get my computer to recognize it. But I did actually want to talk.
This mic will do that. This mic will just, again, fine, beautiful, pristine. Love my Yeti. And in the last 2 weeks, it's chosen two shows where I'm like talking fine on it, and I move it just a little bit, and the wire that it's connected to goes out, and then you touch the wire, and it's like, no, yes. And it's like, I didn't do anything. I just wiggled it for like a minute. So it doesn't make any sense.
We got Shane is actually on day night with his wife. He tuned in to watch the show. Asked, did Dan purposely blur his own shirt?
I'm happy that you ask. I didn't, but I know that it looks like that. It's actually one of my favorite shirts, and I have a bunch of different versions of this, but it's the Punisher.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it's the Punisher.
I'm a huge Marvel fan.
Yeah, there you go, Shane. You could see it now. How about? So yeah, it's the Punisher.
I love that. I also, this is completely random, but I also love the Venom hat that you have. I think I saw it on one of your it was either show or interview. Big fan of the Venom hat. And Shane says, kids are still awake. Day night starts soon. Oh, that's a sick shirt. It is a sick shirt. I'm a huge Punisher fan too.
Shane is buttering me up because most of the people that voted in my John Summerall poll voted almost unanimously for Auburn. And then I got an alert that he's like the front runner for it.
I was going to say that to you.
So Shane, I know that you're saying nice things to me. I also know why you're saying it. And this shirt, like I could have told you that the shirt was blurred and it had like my old record for Syracuse if Angeli was actually healthy. Like that was the blur that I had on the shirt.
Oh my God. I love that. That's hilarious. I did want to talk to you because college football, obviously the college football playoff committee came out with their new top 25. Syracuse and Cincinnati made the list. Seems like every team that lost this past week that was on here dropped 5 spots, except for Iowa, who dropped a 2-point game in some bad weather conditions against Oregon. I just want to get your thoughts. Are there any surprises to you with the playoff? And if so, where?
How much time do we have? So
we got plenty of time. Yeah.
So I actually did my show tonight. And see, this is what happens when I tell people I'm taking the day off for a holiday. I take like hours at a time off kind of, but I did it. I didn't do the show this morning. to take the holiday. And then I was like, oh man, I got to get on the call tonight. So as the college football playoff released, I did a show of the release in the moment and then my reaction to it. So we wrote them all in as they happened, and then I went back through and talked about it. So it's very fresh where I agree and where I disagree. So the top 5 didn't change. Am I surprised? No. I mean, Ohio State, this is how it works. If they go undefeated, they're going to be number 1 for the rest of mankind and eternity and all of that stuff. And then Indiana, I know that people are like, wow, that was a crazy catch and he got his foot down and it's nuts because they're great. My reaction was, you beat a team that fired their coach that has an interim head coach and a backup quarterback by 3 points, and you needed that score at the end. So I see it a little bit differently, which is why Indiana's back at 2 for me. So I do agree with that. But Texas A&M and the committee, I was on the call after they released their picks, and the committee talked about how much time they took to determine Texas A&M and Indiana. They talked about that not being necessarily an easy decision, nor was Texas Tech and Ole Miss. So, I mean, Texas Tech beats BYU. That's great. Ole Miss is a good team. They only have 1 loss. They're in the SEC, but their schedule, I'm kind of like looking for more. And so, I mean, I'm happy Cincinnati's in. I'm happy that South Florida's in. There are some other teams that can argue about this, but the committee was interesting. The committee still values South Florida's win over Boise State and their win over Florida, despite neither one of those teams being ranked anymore when we look at the AP and the coaches poll, as well as the college football playoff. And yeah, I mean, I think Virginia and Louisville, they rise together, they fall together. They're kind of a package deal. And the committee's not really seemingly a big fan of the ACC. I think Georgia Tech should be above Miami, but the committee does love one team. They proved last year when it comes to the ACC, they love one team. They loved Miami last year. They love Miami this year. They had Miami ranked above SMU for weeks when SMU was better than they were in the conference. So it's kind of confusing. I think Vanderbilt's too low at 14. I think they're a dangerous team. The committee agreed with me just a week late. They put Texas in the top 10, which is beautiful. And like Shane said, who's Ohio State played other than Texas? You're 100,000% right. So, I mean, I do totally agree with that. I think Texas is a great win. But let's get into the one that I disagree with the most. Oh, and by the way, Texas is finally above Oklahoma, which makes sense because they have the same record and Texas beat them. So let's just hash that out. But Notre Dame is above Texas, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. Why? Okay. SMU has a better win than Notre Dame does. Because SMU beat Miami, Notre Dame didn't. Notre Dame has a win over USC. That is their only ranked win. USC lost to Illinois, and USC's only claim to fame is beating Michigan, who's not that good and has not beaten a ranked team and lost to the only ranked team they played, which is Oklahoma. So if you're saying USC is good because they beat Michigan, but Michigan didn't beat anybody, then is USC that good? And if USC is not that good, is the Notre Dame win over USC that good? And Notre Dame just beat Navy, who's not ranked, and they beat Navy every year. So Notre Dame is getting credit as if they beat Texas A&M and or Miami, which is wild to me that the committee's looking at them saying, well, they only lost by 4 points combined, but they lost. Louisville beat them. SMU beat them. SMU's not even a part of this. Louisville's barely in this thing. Why is Notre Dame being and they talk about, oh, well, they did this and they, they're great and they look good and the eye test. And I mean, I wish the committee would just say we're putting Notre Dame in the top 10 every year because it's Notre Dame and they make us money. Like I would rather them just say that. I would rather that because there's no logical, rational, factual reason when you consult your conscience why Notre Dame is in the top 10. But I mean, I like Texas A&M. Listen, I'm going to say this, and I know we're going to roll tide, baby, and people in the South are going to love me for this, and I know the Big Ten is going to hate me for this. Alabama's the best team in the country.
Ooh, that's interesting. They're
the best team in the country. They have 5 ranked wins in the SEC. Yeah, let me tell you something. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Indiana, you know what they can't get in the Big Ten? 5 ranked wins. You want to know why? Because there's not enough good teams in the Big Ten to even be worthy of the ranking. Why are we glorifying these teams for beating a Michigan State team that has one win in the conference, a Purdue team that has no wins in the conference? Why are we talking about how well Indiana looked against a team in Penn State that's 0-6 in the Big Ten and 3-6 overall? We keep talking about these teams like there's some type of great history to them, but we're talking about this year. The college football playoff is not based in history. If it's based in history, then Syracuse should go to the college football playoff. So what we're talking about right now, in this moment. So stop talking about a win over Illinois being good, because Illinois is terrible. And you can't talk. But here's the thing. They keep talking about how Notre Dame has won X amount of games straight. They won 7 games straight. Alabama's won 8 games straight. So you're going to look at Notre Dame and you're going to give them credit for losing to Texas A&M and losing to Miami. But you're going to punish Alabama for losing in week 1. But then beating 5 ranked teams. Indiana can't beat 5 ranked teams because they don't play 5 ranked teams. Ohio State can't beat 5 ranked teams because they don't play 5 ranked teams. Oregon can't beat 5 ranked teams because they don't play 5 ranked teams. Alabama is being punished for something that happened at the beginning of the season, while Notre Dame is not being punished for something that happened at the beginning of the season. How does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. And Notre Dame is facing a lot of the bottom feeders of said conferences. I mean, they play Stanford, I think, to end the year. They played Purdue, if I'm not mistaken, as well. They're playing the bottom of the Big Ten and in the ACC. And when they haven't had to play the bottom, they haven't performed quite well. Alabama, and this is where I think a lot of week 1 stuff has to be kind of thrown out the window a little bit, because week 1 is always crazy. Right. It's always a lot of, there's a lot of stuff that ends up happening. And we're seeing it with how few teams remain undefeated at this point in the year. But what you can't ignore is what happens after that, because that's part of the picture. I mean, if you're good, like you said, if you're going to credit certain teams for losses very early in the season, how are you not going to credit other teams for great wins after we've seen how their opponents have played up to this point? You mentioned Alabama and all their ranked wins. That's ranked wins, like that shouldn't be ignored, whether it's by the committee or fans in general. And I think that's something that I'm still kind of getting blown, like my head's kind of exploding from, because we're seeing it with the favoritism towards Notre Dame. I mean, we're seeing a little bit with some favoritism towards Miami as well, but we saw that last year. It's kind of the same thing where Miami is I think 6th or 7th in the conference right now, and they're the first ACC team ranked in today's release. But I wanted to quickly get your thoughts about that, because Miami, they did beat Syracuse, but that was, the first half of that game was way closer than what the score indicated, and that was just an insane. That was an insane game. Could you just give me your thoughts about that game and just about, is it right that Miami finds itself moving up? I think they're at 15 now after that victory.
No. You beat a terrible team by 4 touchdowns. And that's my hometown. But you beat a terrible team by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
If teams aren't going up because they beat the Citadel, then why is Miami going up for beating Syracuse? And I don't understand. The committee likes Ohio State. Let's be real. The committee likes the Big Ten, the SEC, Notre Dame, and Miami. And this year they like the Big 12. But there's bias. I'm an impartial broadcaster. I always talk to people about it is a cardinal sin in broadcasting to be partial.
Yeah.
I love Syracuse, but I don't think they're going to win another game this year. I don't
either. No.
Okay. And BC is the worst team, and Syracuse is the second to worst team in the ACC. The first win from BC may come against Syracuse. So they're not going to beat Notre Dame. And obviously, they were awful against Miami. That was just a waste of time. The defense played well, but here's the thing about that game. Syracuse's defense is getting just hit and hit and hit and hit. And they have good moments. But any good defense that's on the field for the amount of time that they are, when the offense can't move the ball, they're going to make mistakes. I mean, you don't let a score come through until 2:13 left in the first half for Syracuse's defense. That's a win against you're in Miami. So that's a win. That's phenomenal, right? But they're on the field too long. This offense cannot move. They can't move. And you fire the wide receiver coach and no one can get the ball to his guys. You demote the quarterback coach and he doesn't have a quarterback that can throw or that you let throw. So it's like, why are you punishing Nunzio and Miles? Like you say, I'm Fran, put it on me. You know, I respect Fran. I have a great relationship with Fran. But if I'm like, okay, Fran, put it on you. Why did you make these moves? These were stupid moves. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to fire somebody, fire the offensive line coach. And I'm not for firing anybody, but I'm just having a conversation of go to a place which is really bad and assess that situation. This offensive line could not block a wall that doesn't move. Like, I mean, they can't block anything. They can't. And I said going into this season, I said, they look the part, but can they play the role? They're bigger than they used to be. They're wider than they used to be, and they're taller than they used to be. But they're the technique, who they pick up. How do you yell hike and there's already two guys in the backfield? Like Syracuse might as well play with three offensive linemen because two of them aren't blocking. Like every play, one or two of them are not blocking. So maybe, you know how defenses go 3-4, 4-3? Maybe Syracuse should go, you know what? We're not going to do a 5-man front for offensive line. We're going to do a 3-man front and hope the best because it doesn't make any sense. So I'm not for Dale being fired. I'm never going to wish somebody to be fired. All I'm saying is Fran Brown decided to demote and fire people who are at the mercy of quarterbacks that can't move the ball, where the offensive line is extremely bad. It's so bad. And I mean, it could be the worst in the country. And a few years ago it was. So, I mean, I just, if anything, I would say I'm going to move Dale Williams to this role and I'm going to move somebody else into the offensive line, or maybe I take Jeff Ambrosi. That's the backup offensive line coach or the assistant one. And maybe I'm going to have him make some more decisions and have him and Dale together, but he gets final say. I don't know. But I mean, Miami getting credit for beating Syracuse is stupid and it's wrong. But again, it's like, is this what the committee really cares about? Do they really care about blowing out meaningless games at the end of the season? And if it's all about the end of the season and what have you done for me lately, then why are you still punishing Alabama? You know, like if it's all about what have you done for me lately, then shouldn't every team schedule the Citadel and, you know, Purdue at the end of the season? And you know, people say, well, you got to play the team that's in front of you. It's not Indiana's fault that they're playing the schedule. No, it's not their fault that they're playing the schedule. It's not. But they shouldn't be commended for beating horrible teams. Like, the only reason why Ohio State, Indiana are 1-2 is because they're in the Big Ten and they're undefeated. Between the two of them, they have 3 quality wins in 19 combined games. They have 2 quad 1 wins and 1 quad 2 win between the two of them in 19 games. Yet Alabama plays a gauntlet and they still have to play tough teams. This is the thing. The SEC is going to figure a lot of this out because they're playing each other. So one of these schools, the Texas or the Oklahomas, are going to have 3 losses, or Texas A&M is going to have their first loss. And then that's going to be their argument why Notre Dame gets in, which is wild to me that you're going to punish the SEC for beating the crap out of each other, but you're not going to hold Notre Dame accountable for playing a very boring schedule.
Right. And Shane comes in, speaking of offensive line coaches, how does Auburn still have a job? Couldn't block a pop-up if their computer asked. That's rough. I did also want to show Shane the solid and share the quick league winners, our individual rankings. Shane actually moved Texas A&M to number 1 in his ranking. Everyone else is kind of chalk with Ohio State at first. And then he has Indiana at 2 as well. And our friend Kyle Jones, shout out Kyle for the site, he actually has Texas A&M at number 2 as well. So it's been a very interesting. I don't know if the logic for some of the stuff really pans out in terms of what the CFP ends up deciding for some of their ranking system. I mean, I like seeing South Florida finally in there. I talked about Tennessee and how I'm not really too high on them. Actually, I did want to talk about Pittsburgh because actually Notre Dame does take on Pittsburgh this week. It's the first time I think 20 years that Acrisure Stadium and Pittsburgh will actually have college game day there, and they take on the Notre Dame team we're talking about. Pittsburgh finally ranked there, have a chance to potentially be ACC championship material. Who knows? But I did actually. I'm asking this because I did want your opinion on Pat Narduzzi, on Coach Narduzzi's comments regarding the game, where he didn't consider the Notre Dame contest a must-win game. What are your thoughts about that? Because it's not, you said, because it's not an ACC game. Do you think it's a must-win game if you're Pitt?
I think if you want to be relevant in the college football playoff national conversation, it's a must-win. I think if Notre Dame means this much to the college football playoff committee, if Pitt beats them, they should be in the top 15.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. And I said this on my show just a little while ago. I said on Wake Up Call, if Notre Dame loses any one of their next 3 games, no one talk to me about Notre Dame for the rest of the year. Like, you're not allowed. They're going to beat Syracuse and they're going to beat Stanford.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were seasons where they beat Stanford. Stanford's terrible. And people are like, well, Stanford historically, and, USC, they used to be good. And 10 years ago, my dad told me that Stanford was like, and I'm like, what, why are there all these excuses coming out? Like people are still telling me Penn State, if you beat Penn State, it's a good win. You're beating a 3-6 team, 0-6 in the conference. It's not a good win. It's just not. Just stop showing your bias of conference, your bias of school, your bias of where you went, the bias of who you cheer for, and the bias of history. We're talking about right freaking now. Alabama fans wanted to fire Kalen DeBoer last year before the season was over.
Yeah. Now,
best team in the nation. Best team. They're better than Texas A&M because they played a tougher schedule. If the requirement for being in the top 3 is to be undefeated, why wasn't Memphis there?
Right.
Why wasn't South Florida there at the beginning of the season in the AP and the coaches poll? If all you have to do is be undefeated, that's all you have to do. Why wasn't Louisville up there? Why wasn't Virginia up there? Why wasn't BYU up there? Let's call reality. Those spaces are reserved for Notre Dame, the Big Ten, and the SEC, and they got to really screw the pooch for anybody to take those spots. And Alabama, I mean, for real, if I hear one more time anybody on the committee say, we like Notre Dame because they're on a 7-game winning streak, Alabama's on a longer winning streak against better competition in a conference, and Notre Dame's not in a conference. How about this? Notre Dame ends the season at 10-2, arguably. They don't play a conference championship. They don't get punished.
Right.
But the American plays a conference championship, and they're still trying to figure out if they should put one of them in. And the American right now has 6 teams that can play. And the ACC has 6 or 7. You're telling me the American's weak and the ACC's weak when they're not top heavy like the Big Ten. They're not top heavy like the Big 12. Their conference is so good that almost half the conference is viable to get in this thing. And they have no losses, 1 loss. We're not talking about, this is a bad conference where everybody has 3 losses and somebody's got to go. These are teams that are almost undefeated or undefeated in their conference. And we have 3 weeks left. And there's a chance that, 4, 5, 6 of these teams are still alive in this. East Carolina is still alive in the American. Yeah. I mean, you look at the American, Navy, South Florida, Memphis, East Carolina, Tulane, North Texas, all available. You look at the ACC, Virginia, Louisville, Miami, Duke. I mean, for goodness sakes, there's so many teams that are in this thing, and they're going, well, we're only going to take 1 from the American, 1 from the ACC. Why? So you're going to try to argue 4 from the Big Ten? I mean, the SEC has an argument because the SEC has a bunch of 1-loss teams, but they play really good competition. So what my thing to the committee, and I'm on the call all the time, and I put in my request to ask a question, and I never seem to get the opportunity to do so, but I have so many questions. One of them being, how much do you look at an undefeated team versus a 1-loss team when you're talking about strength of schedule and body of work. Like they said, Indiana has the best offense, the highest scoring offense, but they play crap competition.
Yes.
Like if Alabama played the same competition, what would they average per game? So,
Right.
I mean, what are we really saying? Are we saying like play a crap schedule and have the number one QB rating and the top scoring defense and the number one scoring offense and be undefeated? And we're going to put, I mean, then in that case, I would suggest to Alabama to play the Citadel, Duquesne, and Mercyhurst. And then after you play those 3 games, do everything in your power in the SEC to play who's ever at the bottom, and then you'll be number 1 in the country. But you're punishing the SEC for being a gauntlet. You're glorifying Notre Dame for not being in a conference, and you're telling the Big Ten, as long as you stay undefeated, you're the best team in the nation. How is Indiana the best team in the nation when it took the final seconds to beat a winless team in their conference?
That's a great question. I wish there was like a realistic answer for that, because it's one of my biggest problems with this whole thing is when you talk strength of schedule, when you talk, like you said, when you talk Indiana best off, I mean, who is that really against though? You know, is it against the elite defense, which we're not seeing? I mean, I was at the Maryland game where Indiana, I mean, they just flatlined Maryland, but Maryland doesn't have a good defense. Maryland's playing a bunch of freshmen. You know, like that's a completely overhauled roster. Mike Locksley, he's trying to rebuild a program. Whether or not he's the ability to do that going forward remains to be seen. But for now, they're playing a lot of freshmen. Like you can't just be like, okay, well, they put up 50 points against Maryland, and Maryland's a really good team. They're not, though. They may have 3-4 wins, but they're not a good team. I mean, even at the beginning of the season, they were projected to be a bad team, and that's just because of how much youth they have. I mean, Malik Washington has really shown out as a quarterback, and the turnover margin has helped them in that way. But a lot of turnovers can be fluky, So when it comes to teams winning games based on turnovers, if it's not technique-based turnovers, if that makes sense, where like it's scheme generated through interceptions, I consider that stuff pretty fluky. It's relatively easy to take care of the football when you're not taking shots downfield. So
yeah.
when I see stuff like that, and I'm seeing, Indiana, and granted, I love Fernando Mendoza. I think he's a great quarterback, but when I see stuff like that happen, I'm just like, are they really watching the games, or are they just looking at the stats on the sheet instead of, I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong, but they're supposed to be watching the games, if I'm not mistaken, right?
If Indiana was 10-0 in the ACC, they would not be in the top 3.
No, I don't think so either. Without a doubt, no. Yeah.
They wouldn't be. And people are laughing. They're laughing the ACC off because how does that make sense? Because Clemson and Florida State aren't good. Then so you have 6 good teams this year instead of 1 or 2. So you're being punished. But the Big Ten doesn't have 6 good teams. The Big 12 doesn't have 6 good teams. The only other one that does is the SEC. So the ACC has 6 teams playing for a championship. The SEC's got all these great teams. So, what are we saying here? Like, if Syracuse had Indiana's schedule, they would have more than 3 wins with Ricky Collins.
Yeah.
Because I believe that Ricky can beat Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Maryland, Rutgers. What are we talking about? What do we say when you're recruiting and you're scouting and you look at an offensive lineman and you go, wow, he manhandled everybody. But then you look at the competition. What if he was at okay, he manhandled the competition in rural Wyoming. But what if he played in Orlando?
Right.
Is he going to be the same? And that's the thing that when you're scouting, you're supposed to really review talent and you're supposed to review who they play. And that's why I tell Indiana fans and Ohio State fans and Notre Dame fans, don't hate me. Just play a better schedule and stop telling me that you're just playing the schedule that's in front of you and you can't help it. Because in that case, why are you shitting on the ACC? They have to play the schedule. They don't know 10 years in advance if those teams are going to be good. So all I'm saying to this world is we make an excuse for someone that we won't make for somebody else. We give Notre Dame a pass for a quality loss, but we think Louisville's 20th for having a win over the team that Notre Dame couldn't beat. So, I mean, it's like, what are we really talking about? If the ACC is so bad, why do they have better wins than Notre Dame?
That's a great question.
Why does Louisville have better wins than Notre Dame? Why does
Yeah.
Miami have better wins than Notre Dame? Like, and by the way, why is Virginia being punished to drop 5 spots when they lost their quarterback? Does Chandler Morris lose a 1-possession game? So, I mean, and again, if it was Georgia, they would be like, they lost, but they lost their quarterback and we can't be mad. It's like, there are excuses made for certain people, certain teams, certain coaches, certain conferences. And people don't like that I say this because they don't like the truth. Like, my job is to cover college football.
Right.
If I'm sitting on the college football playoff committee, which one day I hope that I am, or that I have some type of inner working of this or whatever, if I'm sitting in that room, I'm going to say to the other 12 or to other 12 people, 11 people, tell me why Notre Dame is here. Well, their quarterback looks really good. I don't care. Is he on the runway? Is it Fashion Week in New York City? I don't care what he looks like. Tell me about what he's done. Who's he beating? And people say, well, if you say this negative and you say that negative, you hate them. I don't hate them. I'm trying to make a list of 25 teams that make logical, rational sense for the body of work that they've done. Because if we're just going to give a pass to this school and rub this school's shoulders and kiss this school on the mouth, but slap the other one in the face, then why are we even playing games? Why is the ACC playing a schedule when every year the narrative is it's down, they suck, they're not good, they're down? That's the narrative at the beginning of every basketball season, every football season for the last 3 years, is that they're down. And I'm going to tell you this, you know, the networks that say it, and those networks that say it are the same networks that get paid to have those teams on and those conferences on. Those networks say that narrative and they won't give it up because they can't be wrong. So when they're proven wrong by Virginia, proven wrong by Louisville, proven wrong by Miami, proven wrong by Duke, proven wrong by SMU, who might be the best 3-loss team in the nation.
Yeah.
When you're proven wrong, they won't let go of the narrative. The narrative every year is Notre Dame is good, the Big Ten's powerful, the ACC sucks. And show me where the Big Ten is powerful. Show me how many quad 1 quality wins Oregon has. Show me how many Indiana has. They have 2. They have a quad 1 and a quad 2. Ohio State has 1. Like, Texas A&M's played an easy SEC schedule, but Alabama has to go undefeated and take care of Murderers Row to be above Indiana and Ohio State? Where Indiana and Ohio State, they're not playing Murderers Row. They're on the friggin' Yellow Brick Road. Like, it's the difference between skipping and being in each other's arms and just kind of bouncing through to talk to but maybe that's what it is. Maybe just like Oz is a giant head that's really a man behind a fake curtain, maybe that's what we're all talking about here. Maybe it's a giant fake curtain, and when the SEC gets to the end of the Yellow Brick Road and they talk to the college football playoff, they say, "You shall not pass." And it's like, what? I mean, and I know I'm connecting Lord of the Rings with that, but I mean, is this all that we're looking at here? Is this really it that we're seeing? And they are Lord of the Rings because they control who gets an opportunity at it. But yeah. I mean, is this truly Oz? Is this all that this thing is? Because the SEC is being told, you should turn around. And then here comes Indiana, and they're like, aren't you cute? Why don't you come behind the curtain and play with us? Like, I mean, it doesn't make sense that we have 2 Big Ten schools that are undefeated, and most of their schedule has been blah. And Alabama's like, wow, we're beating every single good team, including Georgia on the road. We beat 4 in a row. We beat 5 in 6 games that were ranked. And we still have to beat the rest of them, win the SEC title. And if Indiana or Ohio State makes it to the Big Ten title, one of them is going to be undefeated, and you're going to put them above us. You're going to put Ohio State above Alabama if Alabama goes 12-1 and Ohio State goes 13-0. And there's people watching the show right now going, yeah, Yeah, because you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Because you're drinking the Kool. Like, what is the point of strength of schedule? What is the point of scheduling? The Big Ten knows that they don't have to schedule a tough non-conference because they're not faulted for it, but the ACC has to. The American has to. Like, there's conferences that have to play a gauntlet non-conference, and then they got to hope to God that their teams get ranked in conference, where the Big Ten can literally play 9 unranked schools they can play in their conference. They can play 8 out of 9 unranked teams, and then they can schedule an FCS team and 2 teams that are unranked, and they can make it. Penn State does not play a tough non-conference schedule. They don't. And Michigan, again, how far are we? We're in week 12. They don't have a ranked win. Why is Michigan in the college football playoff guy? And there's people that keep telling me or keep saying out loud that Michigan has a shot of making it in the college football playoff. The SEC there would have to be 7 ADs in the SEC that collectively cancel college football for the rest of the year for Michigan to get in. We would have to hear from Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and they'd all have to have a joint press conference, and they would say, in lieu of finding out that the wizard isn't real, we've decided to not play college football. I mean, what are we talking about if like, and we have to just follow the leader? Like, I'm saying something that goes against the grain, and anybody who goes against the grain ends up being ostracized and attacked, and there's pitchforks and there's torches at their door. But I want to remind you all, Thomas Edison went against the grain when he said, I can make light that doesn't come from the sun. And there were people that went against the grain when they said the world isn't flat, it's round. So to all you flat earthers, welcome to the fact that I think the earth is round, and I'm going to stay that way.
Yeah, I think it's damning when, like I said, we were talking about conference strength too, and the Big Ten has, like, I would say 5 teams that are, I guess, technically, and if we're going to include Michigan, I know there's some delusional Michigan fans out there, but out of 17 teams in the conference, I think that's pretty damning, to be honest with you. And it just speaks to just the one-sidedness, the bias that we're kind of seeing here. I mean, we're seeing it with the SEC too. I'm pretty sure Missouri was ranked last week after they came off a lot. Well, they're not ranked this week. They finally got taken off after losing to A&M, but they were ranked last week after losing to Vanderbilt, which I thought that was kind of insane to begin with too. I think I spoke about it last week, but I'm not a big fan of, having teams be ranked and then coming off a loss and then suddenly finding themselves moving up in the world. It's a very nice luxury that it seems like only SEC teams and Big Ten teams seem to really have, because when we saw South Florida end up, stumbling a bit against Miami, they took a big hit for that. The same Miami that was, I think, ranked top 3 in the nation at one point in time, same Miami that they have at number 15 right now. But when USF lost to them, that was a huge thing. Same Miami team that we saw Notre Dame lose to. So I think that the biases are very clear, and it's just, I'm hoping that we see something different because there are a couple weeks left, but just seeing the trends from this first week to the second week, I'm not really so optimistic, I guess is the word that I'll use, that we'll see any change like that. I hope I'm wrong going forward, but I guess it is getting late, so I do want to segue into some Syracuse talk. I guess that's a good segue, because I mean, obviously we talked, Syracuse ended up losing to Miami, and what ended up being close first half, disaster class second half. They go on a bye this week before taking on Notre Dame. 0 wins between the first bye to this bye. What are you looking for? Are you expecting any changes out of Syracuse? What are your thoughts as the Orangemen go into this second bye week?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but you've been named the offensive line coach, and I've been named the running backs coach. So, I mean, I guess that's new news that just came out. So I look forward to working with Yasin Willis and Will Nixon and the rest of the staff. But I mean, do I expect any change? This has been, again, this is my hometown. I love them dearly. This has been one of the most boring, wasteful seasons when you are a head coach, you have to be prepared with more than plan A. And the fact that you lose Steve Angeli and you oversimplify your offense to the point where it's like a toddler's offense, and it's so easy to figure out. And like, you start shifting people around and you fire people. Like, I'm not seeing leadership. And I've had people in the industry that have called me and spoken to me candidly, and it's not good. I mean, this last year, you went 10-3. And you played a really shitty schedule. Pardon my language, but it was shitty. There's no word I can use for it. So I hope that's okay. But it was a horrible schedule. And somebody asked me at the beginning of the season, how did they go 10-3 this year, Dan? And I said, don't play this schedule.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to have an idea. You have to be able to adjust. Life comes at you. Microphones stop working. Computers stop working. Wires stop working. The power goes out. Your internet's not sufficient. Things happen. Your flight gets delayed and you got to go on air. Things happen and you have to. I can't tell you. If you saw what it took for me to go on air sometimes, people have no idea the amount of times I went on air because I had to like makeshift this. I might as well have been putting the aluminum foil rabbit ears on an old TV. Like what I had to do to get on air, but I found a way. I prayed to God. I asked God for help. And then I just trusted myself and I figured out ways to do it. You call people, you ask questions, you ask things that you don't know, you look it up. I don't see Fran Brown with a plan B or a plan C or any type of a plan. I mean, it's literally like, we're going to go to this game. We're going to play really shitty. We're going to get beat. We're going to prepare for next year. And that's not good enough. Like, I tell fans, come to the games and don't leave. What I saw on the field against North Carolina for the first time in my 22-year career of broadcasting, I don't care that the fans left. That was horrible. That was a waste of time. It was genuinely a waste of 3 hours. It was a waste of time. And I feel terrible for the defense because it reminds me of the defense of a few years ago when the defense was like takeaway, turnover on downs, 3 and out. And the offense didn't do anything. And eventually the defense gives up points because they've been on the field for like 2/3 of the game. Yeah. And, you know, I credit the defense for the work that they've done. I credit the guys that grown. I thought Demetrius Samuel Jr. would grow. He has. You know, I'm proud of the guy Antoine Delorier and what he's done to step up in the absence of Derek McDonald and with Justin Barron and Marlo Wax Jr. moving on to the NFL. Like, there's things that I enjoy seeing. But if Jonte Cook leaves, I'm not going to be surprised. If Yasin Willis leaves, I'm not going to be surprised. If Steve Angeli leaves, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm really not. And I mean, because it comes down to leadership. Like, you have to be able to deal with, you know what, one of the prayers I say to God every day? I say, God, help us to heal completely and for good. No matter what, may we heal through you, and help us to handle well what's in our control and what is not. The only thing that is in your control in your life is you. What you say, how you act, what you do, that's it. You are in control of you. Everything else is out of your control. So when things don't go my way, do I sit here and pout in my studio and go, well, I didn't get what I wanted the way I was, so I guess I'm not. No, I keep working. I keep going. Right. Okay. And I don't see the leadership of Syracuse working or going or doing anything to progress forward. I don't want to hear buzzwords. I don't want to hear about next year. If you're gonna play the way that you played the last few games, do Notre Dame a favor and do BC a favor and just give it up. Don't even play. Let people go apple picking and Christmas tree hunting. Because if this is what you're going to put on the field, it's embarrassing to watch. I'm not upset with fans that are not paying for their tickets. I'm not upset. I don't want Fran to get fired. I want Fran to show me leadership, because everything is great when you're winning. Everybody loves you. They spend money. They rub your shoulders. You get nice things. Everybody wants to have you in their luxury box and bring you on this trip and whatever. But in the here and now, what are you doing? Like, Penn State is bad. You're worse.
Yeah.
Like, you're worse. You're worse than Penn State. And they suck this year. They suck something awful. So I don't know how to assess anything in Syracuse, because if I was coaching a high school team and I had an offensive coordinator that was putting up this vanilla garbage, and I would, if I put this on the field, I would expect a high school team to come to me and go, fix this crap in the next 2 weeks, or we're going to have a conversation with the board. Like, this is not football. This is like a lethargic, almost, like when they tell you you're going to have surgery and they tell you, like, we're going to put this in your veins, and within the next 5 minutes, you're going to go to sleep. Syracuse is like that, fourth minute before it kicks in, where they almost look asleep, but they're not asleep yet. And I just don't like seeing it, because I know these guys are fighting. I know that there's guys on the team that aren't giving up, but you can't sit here and tell me that this team is energized, excited, and that comes down to leadership. What do they say in the movie Remember the Titans? When he's like, you don't do this, you're not doing that, you're only out for yourself. And what does he respond with? He's like, your guys don't block for this guy. They don't help that guy. They don't do anything for anybody. And he's like, you know what? That's it. He's like, I'm going to get mine, and that's it. I'm going to take care of me, and I'm going to go home. And what does the captain say? He said, now that man, that's a terrible attitude. And what does he say? He says, attitude reflects leadership, captain. And I'm telling you right now, there's no leadership in Syracuse football, and the attitude reflects it. And I'm not trying to come down hard on Fran. I'm trying to be real with people. This team is not detailed, accountable, relentless, or tough. And that's a Fran thing. Yeah. So is Fran going to come to us and tell me that he going to tell us that he wrongly recruited 105 people? Or is he going to take responsibility that they're not Dart because his leadership is not there right now? I mean, if this is how you're going to act when you lose a player on your team, then I guess play half a season. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I mean, I know it's a long-winded answer, but can anybody show me something good on this Syracuse football team beyond Jack Stonehouse, the punter, and the fact that this defense busts its ass until it gets to a point where they're human beings, not robots, and they're like, okay, we didn't give up a point for 20 some odd minutes, but y'all suck so bad and we've been out here so long, we're going to give up something. I mean, there's not a defense in this country that is playing with that bad of an offense that's not going to eventually give up points.
Yeah. Well, to put it in perspective, I was trying to find how much points per game they've had since Angeli's gone down. Wasn't able to find that on the quick search, but I did see in their last 3, they've only put up 12 points per game, and most of that's in garbage time, by the way. It's not like competitive games like Wake Forest has been competitive. They put up 12 in the last 3. So Syracuse is third to last in all of college football in points, offensive points per game. Throughout the year now, they're at 123rd in the nation. To put that in perspective as well, last year they're at 33.5 points per game, which was top 25, if I'm not mistaken, something around there with obviously Kyle McCord and a lot of different playmakers on offense. But the biggest thing for me is what kind of identity does this team have, especially offensively, right? Because we know the defense has been playing tough. Special teams has been up and down, but it's normally been good behind the kicking. But the offense, I mean, identity-wise, I don't know what they are. Are they a power rushing team? Not really, because they don't really use Justin Willis and Will Nixon as much as they probably should. Are they a raid offense? Not really, because whoever's at quarterback either can't throw the ball or they're not allowed to throw the ball. Are they a pro style offense? No, because they run a lot out of the gun and pistol and RPOs and stuff. So I don't know what the offensive identity of this team is. And I know Fran's a defensive guy, but as the head coach, as great as the defense is playing too, I don't even necessarily think that's truly the team's identity, because you don't really hear much about it. I mean, at all, to be honest. So I mean, just from a fan's perspective, what would you, if you're watching this, you don't know what the team's identity is. They're getting blown out of games. The offense is anemic. The defense can only do so much. I mean, you're there all the time as well. You see the games too. Is there even, can you pinpoint what Syracuse is, maybe not even just offensively, but overall what their identity is at this point?
If you want to pad your sack stats, play Syracuse.
Yeah.
They have scored 70 points in 6 weeks combined without Steve Angeli. They're averaging 11.7 points per game, and there are teams in the FBS that have scored 70 points this season in one game. Syracuse has scored 70 points in 6 weeks. And by the way, take 6 of those away for the defensive touchdown by Anwar Sparrow. They've only scored 64 when it comes to non-defensive touchdowns. They've had 64 points in 6 weeks, which is actually worse. It's about 10 points per week since not having Steve Angeli. So, I mean, that says it all there. I mean, they don't have an identity, because I don't know if Fran's telling Jeff Nixon that whatever Jeff wants to do, he can't.
Right.
Because again, I mean, Luke Carney, why can't he throw the ball? Like, why is he not allowed to throw the ball? And Joe Filardi, it's like, I'm happy Joe's out there, but Joe weighs 90 pounds, and I want him to be able to play lacrosse. And so you're going to keep letting him get hit. Like, I'll go out there and do your lacrosse thing and have fun. But like, what does it say when you have a lacrosse player who's a walk-on on the football team and he passes Jakari Williams, who Fran pretty much never talks about?
Yeah.
He passes Rich, who did some good things in the spring game. Yeah. He passes Luke Carney, who we know at least can run the ball, and he passes Ricky. And people say to me, well, Dan, Ricky came from LSU. Isn't he supposed to be good? And I said he was the backup to the backup. He's like, he might not have even have been the scout guy. I mean, right. You know what I mean? It's like, don't look at the school, because if Ricky was valued by LSU with the amount of money that they have, then Ricky would be at LSU probably. But when somebody comes to Syracuse from LSU or from Alabama or from Texas, it's probably because they've been told they're not going to play. Yeah. And you know what I mean? So what is the identity of this team? They have a growing defense that is disproportionate to their offense, and their special teams doesn't usually get a shot because their offense is so bad that they can't even barely kick a field goal. So, I mean, how would I describe this team? It's non-complimentary football. It's lackadaisical. It's boring. It looks like, I mean, I don't know how many people want to be there at this point, because I was told things from people and I was like, okay, I want to see this for myself. But I mean, where's the energy? Where's the leadership? And if I'm Jeff Nixon and the team sucks this bad and we're not going anywhere, why wouldn't I just hand the ball to my son like 25 times a game? So, like, I mean, the best thing that Syracuse can do is run the ball, and they don't do that. So, I mean, I'm telling you this right now. Yasin Willis is going to get phone calls if he hasn't already, because apparently tampering doesn't matter anymore. But Yasin Willis is going to get phone calls.
Yes.
He's going to get phone calls. John K. Cook is going to get phone calls. Okay. Those things are going to happen. Demetrius Samuel is going to get phone calls. There's certain people that are going to get called, and that is reality. And there's no identity on the offense because there's no planning. As you said, there are a lot of things sometimes, but never all the time. And they're not, I mean, I said it, I was like, Ricky can run. So do the RPO with Ricky and systematically just move down the field. And when they let Ricky do like the short passes and stuff like that, he actually looked good when he was able to do that. But it's like, stop making Ricky drop back in the pocket and throw the ball like Steve because he's not Steve. Stop making him stay in the pocket because he's not Steve. Stop not using your running backs because that's just stupid. And so, I mean, the best players on this team are Demetrius Samuel, Yasin Willis, Will Nixon, Jonte Cook, Dan Villari, and Jack Stonehouse. And I can tell you this without a doubt. I would rather have Jack Stonehouse throw a ball with his foot than watch anybody else throw passes on this team for the rest of the season. Like he's an NFL punter.
Yes.
He's an NFL punter.
He is, yeah.
And Yasin Willis is an NFL quarterback, or is an NFL running back. Like there's certain things that just are, and Dan Villari is an NFL tight end. Yeah. So, I mean, there's certain things that are going to come out of this, but to just chalk this up to, we had really bad luck and what can we do? And woe is me. Like, that's not leadership. I mean, if America was like that in World War II, we'd be speaking German and there'd be a swastika on our flag. So, I mean, we didn't win every battle. Sometime Pearl Harbor, we got caught off guard. There's things that happen to the best out there, the best army, the best this, the best that, the best CEO. I mean, look at Disney. They're losing $5 million a day fighting with Google and YouTube TV. So you think Disney likes that? But they're Disney, right? Disney can't do anything wrong. But right now, they're doing a disservice to a lot of people. So, I mean, there's not a single person on the planet that doesn't face adversity. But it's not how hard that you get hit. It's how hard, it's how much you can take and keep moving forward. That line by Rocky Balboa that I love. And what I'm seeing from Fran is, I'm Rocky, I'm in the ring, and when I'm winning, I'm Rocky. Then I get punched in the face, and now I'm not Rocky.
All right.
But if you get punched in the face and you're not Rocky, then you were never Rocky. And I don't know what the plan is, but I'm getting really sick and tired of hearing a whole lot of nothing, because this team on the field, it's boring, it's wasteful, and honestly, in my opinion, it's disrespectful to Miami to go to their house and walk in there like you got mud on your shoes and you didn't take your shoes off and you got your feet up on their table and you took the candy out of their baby's crib and you're peeing on the wall in their bathroom. Like, I mean, it's like disrespectful to go play these teams and to do this. Like, Notre Dame fans are going to be sitting back in their chair, probably texting on their phones and doing TikTok reels during the game that they play against Syracuse, because what is this? And I'm not knocking the players, but there's no leadership. There's no central focus. So what's the identity of Syracuse? That when disaster strikes, you have to feel bad for them. And you have to accept that this season didn't exist. I mean, I could see Fran next year going, last year was a wash. Let's not even worry about that because that's not who we are. And it's like, yeah, I mean, everyone's happy and good when things are going well. In adversity, you show who you are. Adversity is when I see who you are. 10-3 in a crap schedule, that's not who you are. Who you are is right friggin' now. Who you are is today. Like, if Steve Angeli stayed at Notre Dame, you're telling me that you would have been 0-12?
Oh man, could you imagine that?
So I mean, they don't have an identity, they don't have leadership, and how you respond to adversity is who you are. And this Syracuse defense has worked its behind off, and I commend them. But if I was on this defense right now, I'd be looking at my coach, I'd be looking at the offense, and I would be saying, why in the hell do I have to go out there and kill myself when this is the shit you put on the field? And I can't imagine that locker room is all happy and hugging. I would think at this point, this locker room is, they're coming out of the shower and he's going, hey, why don't you stop them from the end zone? He's like, hey, why don't you keep us off the field for more than 30 minutes? Like, why don't you give us maybe 2 more minutes that you got the offense? Like, I don't think this team is having kumbaya conversations. I think this offense and defense, and this is just my opinion, I'm not saying I heard this, I feel like this is a team that's looking at each other going like, why should I stop that quarterback when my quarterback can't even stop? Like he stops himself more than any defense can stop him. And, again, what's the plan, Fran? Like he talks about how great of we all talk about how great of a recruiter and how great recruiting is, but you recruited all these guys and they're not winning. So you mean to tell me your only good recruit is Steve? So why is there 104 other scholarships?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be dismal and negative. I'm asking a question that is truly genuine. And I'll ask it back to you, Thomas. This is your show. You cover this team. Like, you've heard everything I've had to say. What say you?
Yeah, it's tough because I think the point about, them getting Steve, I mean, the point you made, what if they don't get Steve? Then they do go 0-12. Because I don't see, at least with the way this team is playing now, I don't see how they ever win a game if they don't have Steve. They definitely don't beat Clemson and Death Valley. I know that much. Not with the offense that they're currently running. And I think the leadership aspect is important too, because I've been, obviously like you, I've been to the home games. I don't really see too many guys fired up along the sidelines. I've seen guys I've seen Yasin Willis fired up after a mistake. I've seen an offensive lineman fired up after a mistake happened. I think it was a Collins sack. That's the only time I've seen people like fired up, amped up, ready to, try to do something. I mean, I've seen Jonte Cook, try to console, I guess, Filardi after his rough start. But that was, shout out to Jonte because a lot of people were giving him, flack at the beginning of the year for how he handled stuff at Texas and et cetera. But that's the past. It's who you are now. And I think Cook has done a good job as a leader. But other than that, I don't see too much. And we've already heard grumblings about issues players and people have had with Ricky Collins and the coaching staff going to Ricky. You mentioned the other quarterbacks that were bypassed for Filardi, and nothing against Filardi, but he is a walk-on guy who played lacrosse. Nothing wrong with that. Obviously, he busted his tail to get to where he is. But in the same breath, it's how do you go past the guys that you were playing in the spring game? How do you go past the guys that had other opportunities and now you let a true freshman come in and bypass them? If I'm one of those kids, I'm like, well, what the heck is going on? This abysmal quarterback plays happening in front of me. I'm right here. I want to play. Why am I not getting a shot? Those kids could end up leaving, go to a group of 5 team, group of 6, whatever, get, for a place that they will play. Because why am I going to sit back and not play at a program where they're having a horrendous season? So I think there's definitely a leadership issue. And it goes from the top down as much as I do love Fran. And this is the thing. A lot of people listening may not know this, but me and you were heavily positive towards Syracuse, especially at the beginning of the year while people were trying to boo and get him bench. Yeah, I believe I did too, or 9-3, something like that. We were very high on them. We were even high when Angeli went through his rough patch and fans were, asking to get benched. We were very optimistic when Ricky came in because we assumed that there were going to be some coaching changes that would make the offense work with the adjustment period. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I guess we were fools in thinking that there would be some type of changes on that end. But at the end of the day, we've always been try to be positive. So anybody listening, we're not being negative against Syracuse because that's who we want to be. It's more of we've tried the positivity route. We've tried giving Fran and them time to prove that they're not who their records says they are. But currently, it's hard to argue otherwise. Now, Dan, I didn't even realize that we've been running for over an hour. I didn't mean to hold you so long, brother. Maybe. But before we get out of here, what message do you have for Syracuse fans? Is there any reason to continue watching the games at this point? And just what's your overall message for the fans of the season?
Good news. If you have YouTube TV and they keep fighting with Disney, you do get you get $20 back. So there is a $20 rebate that goes toward your next bill. So that's good. And also, the Notre Dame game will not be on a Disney channel, so you can watch it. So you know, I'm always going to tell fans to come out, and I'm always going to tell them to support. And this is the thing; it's like I'm being constructive. You know, I don't wish bad on anybody. What did I say? I said, why would you fire the wide receivers coach, but then not hold the offensive line coach accountable? I don't think you should fire. I'm not asking him to fire anybody. But I'm saying you fired this one and you didn't. So I was bringing up a point, but I don't wish bad on people. I don't wish firing on people. So let me be clear in case that was misunderstood. And because I didn't mean it that way. And yeah, I mean, my message to the fans is when this team struggles, you abandon them. When this team wins, you still don't show up. So what I would say to the Syracuse fan base is do better. Just do better. There's like not even 50,000 seats in the Dome, which is less than half of Penn State, less than half of Notre Dame, less than half of Ohio State. And so, I mean, when you show up and you fill out, we're asking a hell of a lot less than other schools for you to come in and do this thing. And they need your support. They do need your support. If you're going to come to the game, then don't leave. Because I've talked to players and they see you leave and it hurts them. So I would say show up for Boston College. I would say show up for our game day. The thing about our game day live show at Myers Creek is when we pre-gamed the North Carolina game, fans were energized and they were excited. And that was beautiful to see because the one before against Duke, we had a packed restaurant. And most people were quiet, which was crazy. It's like you're going to wear the gear, you're going to show up to the pregame show, but you're not going to cheer for your team. And so, I mean, this is my hometown, and I've seen this my whole life, you know, pretty much the whole time that I've paid attention. When I was a baby, I wasn't paying attention, but, you know, like these fans, they used to not tailgate. Like they didn't even tailgate. And that's embarrassing. Like LSU came to Syracuse and out tailgated Syracuse. They were tailgating on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They were out at 8:00 in the morning, waiting outside of bars that weren't even open yet because they expected people to be open so that they could drink and party and have a good time. Right. And we did a game day live show downtown. And I had over 200 people there. The place was packed. It was like 4 or 5 deep in front of us. You couldn't even like get off from where we were and like walk to the bathroom without asking a ton of people to move. There was people downstairs. There was people outside. And it was LSU to Syracuse fans, 220 people. It was 210 LSU fans.
That's crazy.
So, like, what do I say to the fans? I say, support your team, love your team, and answer me this question. When you committed a sin and you went to confession, you asked God for forgiveness, did he say, get out of my face, I hate you? When you disappointed your mother, did she say, you're not my son anymore? When you and your wife argue, does she hug you or does she say, like, you're not my husband? Like the first time you didn't take the trash out, you're not her husband, she wants a divorce. Like, if you took sports and you paralleled them to life, you would see how absolutely irrational and illogical people are. Mm-hmm. And if you were judged on 12 days of 365, you would hate the way that people judged you. So what I would say to the fans is, act like a human being. Understand that if you were judged by your boss for 12 days a year, you would all be fired. And have the love and support to know that this football team is more than Syracuse University. It's a city. It's a community. And it's how some people meet their wife or husband. It's how some people meet their best friends. It's how some people meet the people that they hire and they work for. You know, this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest community event that we can do. And I just want to see you love up these kids because they chose to come here, and a lot of them left their family and they're not close to home, and this is all they got. So if they get booed out of their own arena and they play to a 2/3 empty stadium, you're going to leave these kids feeling like they wasted their college experience, and you don't want to be a part of that. So what I would say is, am I constructive? Yes. Am I frustrated? 100%. But I'm not mad at Fran Brown. I'm not mad at the staff. I'm not mad at the players. I'm asking them to show me leadership. And I think if I was on Fran's staff and I wasn't like, and I was one of these coaches and I was the offensive coordinator, I would expect him to bring me into his office and say, where is your leadership? Where is your plan? Like, where's your plan B? Where's your plan C? Show me you care. Show me that you have a feeling for this. Give me an idea. Like, I feel like I'm saying to Fran what Fran would say to his staff, and what he should say to his staff is, what are you going to do right now? So my best advice to Fran and his staff is, what are you going to do right now? Your next step is the only one that I care about. Everything that's happened. I'm not looking at the record. What are you going to do with your next step? And what I would say to the fans is, you have one more game until next August, September.
Yeah.
So can you come to this last game? Because you're not going to have one for like 9 months. So come out, support your team, show them love, and let's send them off the right way. Let's send them off by letting them know that win, lose, or draw in the game of life, everyone can be with you when it's great, but very few people are with you when it's tough. Be one of those few people that shows up for these kids when it's tough.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. The factor of a community being a part of the football, not just the football team, but the university of itself, I think that's really important and something we see that kind of separates certain programs for sure. I do want to give a shout out to some of the student section though, because some of them have stayed around for the entire games. They're one of the few fans that have, and it's kind of sad that it's other students having to do so and not fans, not outside fans having to do that. But I am thankful that I do get to cover the games, even though they have been relatively boring as of late. It helps me meet great people such as yourself and connect with everybody who I respect there. But I think that was really, really well said. And I'm hoping for the Boston College game, there is a good show out because it is the last home game of the year, and it's the last home game for almost 9 months, at least until the spring game comes. And by then, who knows what things may look like. But Dan, before I get you out of here, can you just let everybody know where they can find you at on your social media and your shows?
Yeah. So Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And of course, we're live Monday through Friday, including tomorrow morning. We're on Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and our internet streaming radio on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com, which has over 1,900 episodes on there. And if you forget all that, you can go to wakeupcalldt.com. But if you're looking for me and you really want to find me, I should just start doing the show from the campus of Ohio State or Indiana because we at least know the committee's there. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's just so wild. And I will say this, because I said to be nice. So I do want to say this: in a world full of hate, show me love. And you'll say, Dan, you sounded really hard on some schools. And it's like, well, I'm being real about some things that I saw factually.
Yeah.
I've never once said Indiana, Ohio State, or Notre Dame is a bad football team. I've never said they won't go to the NFL, and I've never disrespected them. I've just questioned their rankings, which is not the kids' fault that play the games.
Right.
And as far as Syracuse goes, how many times have I told you I love them? I'm just trying to put my arm around them and say, what are we going to do next? So my best advice to all of you out there is be kind, because 3 weeks ago I said Indiana wasn't 1 or 2, and I got 500 messages on one media outlet, and most of them were hate mail. And then the following week, when I put them number 1, I got 0 messages. And what that proved to me is sometimes the internet is just a cesspool of people that want to scream. And I want the internet to be better than that. When I agreed with you, you were silent. When I disagreed with you, you told me that I should not have essentially I should not be a broadcaster. So, I mean, that in and of itself is kind of wild. So I would just say be kind, be courteous. We all have opinions. I choose to back mine up. Facts scare people in 2025. They don't scare me. And, sometimes people win things that you don't like. Sometimes people are successful that you're not fans of, or teams you're not fans of. Don't be hateful. Don't be negative. Don't be rude. And yeah, I would just say practice treating other people the way you want to be treated. And let's live in a country and in a world where we can disagree and not hate each other, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully well said. Dan, I appreciate you so much for taking the time out, especially this time, because I didn't realize how long I've kept you. But thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and as I always say, go Hoosiers.
I appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you later, brother.
All right, brother. Be good.
That is Dan Tortora, good friend Dan Tortora. You can make sure you guys find him at Call DT on X/Twitter. There's a live show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. at wakeupcalldt.com. This is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners. If you've been watching this show, please make sure to like. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Comments. This is a live show, but if you comment after the show ends, we will get to it within 24 to 48 hours. So please make sure to do that. And if you're on Facebook or Twitter, make sure to like, share, or comment. It's all free to do so. This is Thomas Christopher, and I'm signing off until next.